In this video, we're breaking down 2 hours of Attack on Titan secrets. Let's get started. First up, we got the paths, outside of time. The paths are invisible channels that connect every single person who can turn into a Titan together. These people are called subjects of Ymir, and they are all connected through something that exists outside of normal space and time. The paths transfer memories, commands, and even the physical materials that make up Titan bodies. Scientists in the Attack on Titan world first figured out that paths must exist when they noticed something strange about how the 9 Titans move between people. When someone with one of these special Titan powers died without being eaten, their power would randomly appear in a newborn baby somewhere else in the world. Distance did not matter. Family relationships did not matter. The power just jumped to a random Eldian baby. This meant all these people had to be connected by something invisible. The story of the paths begins 2,000 years before the main events of Attack on Titan. A young girl named Ymir Fritz was a slave in a tribe called Eldia. One day, someone let pigs escape from their pen. The Eldian king, whose name was also Fritz, asked who did it. The other slaves pointed at Ymir, even though she probably was not the one who actually freed the pigs. As punishment, King Fritz let Ymir go, and then told his men to hunt her for sport. They chased her through the woods and shot arrows at her. Ymir ran until she found a massive tree with an opening at the bottom. She fell into this opening and landed in a pool of water deep underground. In that water lived a strange creature that looked like a glowing spine or centipede. This creature attached itself to Ymir's spine, and she became the very first Titan. When she transformed, her body was enormous, with blonde hair and long ribs sticking out. Her face had no skin, just a visible skull. Ymir returned to King Fritz with her new power. Instead of using it to escape or get revenge, she served him. She used her Titan form to build roads and bridges for Eldia. She destroyed the armies of enemy nations, especially their rival nation called Marley. King Fritz took Ymir as his concubine, and she had 3 daughters with him. Their names were Maria, Rose, and Sheena. Ymir served the king for 13 years after gaining her power. Then one day, someone tried to kill King Fritz with a spear. Ymir threw herself in front of the spear and took the hit instead. She died from her wound, but King Fritz refused to let her power disappear. He forced his 3 daughters to eat their mother's dead body. He told them they had to keep having children, and when they died, their children would have to eat them too. This horrifying practice continued for generations. Ymir's power eventually split into 9 separate Titan powers, creating what are known as the 9 Titans. When Ymir died in the physical world, her soul or consciousness went somewhere else. She ended up in a strange dimension that would later be called the Paths, or the Coordinate. In this place, she appears as her younger self, the way she looked when she first became a Titan 13 years earlier. The world of the Paths looks like an endless desert covered in white sand or soil. The sky shows lights that look like the northern lights or auroras. These lights are actually visible representations of the Paths themselves. At the center of this desert stands a massive glowing tree made of light. This tree is called the Coordinate. From this tree, branches of light spread out in every direction. Each branch represents a path connecting to a different subject of Ymir. When Ymir first arrived in the Paths, only 3 branches existed, probably representing her 3 daughters. As her daughters had children, and those children had more children, more and more paths grew from the Coordinate tree. Eventually, millions of paths existed, one for every Eldian person alive. Time works completely differently in the paths compared to the normal world. Someone can spend what feels like years in the paths, but in the real world, only an instant passes. The experience is strange and conflicting. Zeke Yeager, one of the characters who visits the paths, describes it as feeling like he was there for years, but also like it all happened in a single moment. This weird relationship with time is crucial to understanding what Ymir does in the paths. After arriving in this dimension, Ymir found a small bucket and filled it with water from somewhere in the desert. She uses this water and the sand around her to build things. Specifically, she builds every single Titan body that has ever existed since her death 2,000 years ago. Whenever someone with Titan powers transforms, they are not actually creating their own Titan body. Instead, they are calling out to Ymir through the paths. Ymir receives this call and begins working. She takes sand from the ground and uses her bucket of water to shape and mold it. She carefully constructs the entire Titan body piece by piece. This process takes her an incredibly long time from her perspective. Building just one human body for Zeke took her what felt like years of work. But because time in the paths moves differently, the transformation appears instant to everyone in the real world. The person calling for the Titan power sees their transformation happen immediately. Once Ymir finishes building the body, she sends it through the paths to wherever and whenever it is needed. This process happens for every Titan transformation. When Reiner Braun transforms into the Armored Titan, Ymir is building that body in the paths. When Eren transforms into the Attack Titan, Ymir is crafting it from sand. When random people get turned into mindless pure Titans, Ymir builds those bodies too. She has spent 2,000 years doing nothing but this endless labor. The same principle applies to healing. When a Titan shifter gets injured and their body regenerates, Ymir is actually building replacement body parts in the paths and sending them through to heal the person. If Reiner loses an arm in battle, Ymir constructs a new arm from sand and water, then transfers it to him through the paths. The entire Titan power system runs on her constant work. Ymir also built the Wall Titans. King Karl Fritz, a descendant of the original King Fritz, eventually became tired of war. He took many Eldians to an island called Paradise Island around the year 743. He used the power of the Founding Titan to command Ymir to create hundreds of thousands of colossal Titans. These massive Titans hardened their bodies and formed 3 enormous walls around the Eldian territory on Paradise. The walls were named after Ymir's daughters, Wall Maria, Wall Rose, and Wall Sheena. Every single one of these colossal Titans was painstakingly built by Ymir in the paths. The amount of work this required was astronomical, but she did it because she was ordered to. The reason Ymir continues this endless labor connects to who she was in life. Even though she has godlike power in the paths and can theoretically create anything she wants, she still sees herself as a slave. She appears in torn, ragged clothes. She follows orders from people with royal blood without question or complaint. King Fritz enslaved her in life, and even after death, she remains enslaved by his descendants. She exists only to serve the royal family. When someone from the Fritz bloodline enters the paths, Ymir treats them as her master. She will do whatever they command. This slave mentality trapped her in the paths for 2,000 years. The paths connect more than just physical transformations. They also transfer memories between people. When someone inherits one of the 9 Titans by eating the previous owner, they gain access to that person's memories. They can see events from the past through their predecessor's eyes. Sometimes these memories come clearly, and sometimes they appear as vague dreams or feelings. Blood relations make this memory transfer stronger. Families can pass memories more easily than unrelated people. This is why the royal family can pass down specific knowledge and even their ideals through generations. The Founding Titan represents the central point where all paths meet. Scientists in Marley call it the coordinate because it is the spot where everything crosses. The Founding Titan has abilities that no other Titan possesses. It can change the memories of any subject of Ymir. It can alter their body structure and biology. It can transform regular Eldians into Titans, even colossal Titans. It can command and control all other Titans. According to one character named Tom Caver, all subjects of Ymir are basically part of the Founding Titan's body, no matter where they are in the world. The person who holds the Founding Titan can activate these powers by screaming. They do not even need to be in Titan form. A regular human scream works fine. The scream does not need to be loud either. Frida Rice used memory alteration by just talking normally to her half-sister Historia. However, there is a major restriction on the Founding Titan's power. King Karl Fritz created something called the Vow Renouncing War. This vow affects anyone from the royal family who inherits the Founding Titan. It forces them to reject violence and accept whatever fate the world decides for Eldians, even if that means extinction. They cannot use the Founding Titan to fight back against any threat, even in self-defense. This vow is why the Founding Titan stayed hidden within the Reese family on Paradise Island for nearly a century, without being used for war. King Fritz created this restriction to prevent his descendants from using Titan powers to cause more destruction in the world. Interestingly, the vow only applies to people with royal blood who actually inherit the Founding Titan. It does not affect the Founding Titan if someone without royal blood inherits it, though that creates a different problem. Without royal blood, the person cannot actually use the Founding Titan's powers at all under normal circumstances. The one exception is if someone without royal blood who has the Founding Titan makes physical contact with someone who has royal blood and also has Titan powers. This loophole becomes extremely important later in the story. Several characters directly experience the paths during the series. When Ymir the Younger, a different person, not Ymir Fritz, ate Marcel Galliard and gained the Jaw Titan in the year 845, she woke up in the paths. She saw the auroras lighting up the sky. She did not understand what they were, but she called them freedom and vowed to live without regrets. When Zeke got hit by a thunder spear explosion that should have killed him, he ended up in the paths. He saw Ymir Fritz in her torn clothes in the sandy desert. A nearby Titan opened its stomach and pulled Zeke's dying body inside. Zeke woke up in the paths to find Ymir rebuilding his entire body from scratch using the earth around her. He saw the trails of light in the sky and realized these must be the paths that he had heard about. Eren and Zeke eventually make contact with each other to unlock the founding Titan's full power. When Eren's severed head touches Zeke's hand, they both get transported into the paths together. They meet Ymir Fritz face to face. Zeke believes he can command her because he has royal blood. He wants to order her to make all Eldians unable to have children, which would cause the Eldian race to eventually die out peacefully. But Eren sees something different when he looks at Ymir. He sees a young girl who has been enslaved for 2,000 years. He speaks to her not as a slave or a god, but as a human being with her own free will. He tells her she can make her own choice. He asks if she has been waiting all this time for someone to free her from her bondage. Ymir cries when Eren speaks to her this way. For the first time in 2,000 years, someone treats her like a person instead of a tool. She makes a choice. She decides to give her power to Eren instead of following Zeke's command. This breaks the royal family's control over her. Eren gains the full power of the founding Titan. He creates a Titan body for himself that is even larger than the colossal Titans. Then he uses the paths to send a telepathic message to every single Eldian person in the world, no matter where they are. In this message, he announces his plan to use the Titans in the walls to destroy all life outside of Paradise Island. The paths give the founding Titan holder the ability to manipulate memories across time. Eren uses this power in frightening ways. He sends visions and memories to people in the past. He influences his father Grisha to kill the Rice family and steal the founding Titan, even though Grisha did not want to do it. Eren basically manipulates his own father from the future through the paths. He also sends a Titan to kill his own mother when he was a child, because that event was necessary to put him on the path toward his ultimate goal. The paths transcend normal time, allowing past, present, and future to connect. One specific Titan power, called the Attack Titan, has a unique ability related to the paths. Its holders can see memories from both past and future users. Eren Kruger, who had the Attack Titan before Grisha, somehow knew the names Mikasa and Armin, even though they were not born yet when he was alive. He accessed these memories from future holders through the paths. This creates a complex timeline where Eren in the future is sending memories and influences back to people in the past, setting up events that lead to his own actions. During the final battle, Eren uses the paths to talk with his friends individually. He brings Armin into the paths for a conversation. He creates an alternate reality experience for Mikasa, showing her a version of events where he did not activate the rumbling and instead lived peacefully with her, away from the conflict. He tells them about his true intentions and what will happen. After Mikasa kills Eren, Ymir finally appears to smile. She has been freed from her torment. The act of watching someone kill the person they love most mirrors Ymir's own experience with King Fritz. Mikasa's choice to kill Eren, despite loving him, breaks whatever held Ymir bound to her slavery. After this moment, Ymir releases the power of the Titans from the world entirely. The existence of the paths explains many mysteries that characters struggled with throughout the series. It explains how memories transfer between Titan shifters. It explains how the 9 Titan powers always find a new Eldian baby, even when the previous user dies without being eaten. It explains how Titan bodies appear and heal seemingly from nothing. It explains how the founding Titan can alter memories and biology of people across the world instantly. It explains how royal blood creates stronger connections for memory transfer. Everything about how Titans function comes back to this invisible network connecting all Eldians through an extra-dimensional space where a slave girl has worked without rest for 2,000 years. The paths also explain some abilities outside of Titans. The Ackerman family, though unable to be turned into Titans, still has some connection to the paths. When an Ackerman awakens their power, they suddenly gain combat experience and skills from their ancestors. This appears to work through a similar memory transfer mechanism as the Titans, though the exact connection remains somewhat unclear. The Ackermans were created through Titan science experiments long ago, which might explain why they retain this link to inherited memories even though they cannot transform. From a practical standpoint, the paths function as a biological internet connecting all Eldians. Information flows through it, commands flow through it, physical matter flows through it. The founding Titan acts as the central server or hub where all these connections meet. Whoever controls the Founding Titan can theoretically access and manipulate any Eldian person anywhere in the world. They can read their memories, they can change their memories, they can alter their DNA and body structure, they can force them to transform into Titans, they can control how those Titans behave. The amount of power this represents is essentially godlike. The paths raise interesting philosophical questions about free will and identity. If your memories can be altered or erased by someone with the Founding Titan, are your choices really your own? If your body can be changed at someone else's command, do you truly have autonomy? If you inherited memories from previous users of your Titan power, where does their identity end and yours begin? Ymir Fritz spent 2,000 years as a slave to the will of others, unable or unwilling to exercise her own freedom, despite having unlimited power in the paths. Her situation represents the ultimate loss of free will, where even death could not release her from bondage to her abuser's family line. The ending of Attack on Titan suggests the paths and all Titan powers cease to exist after Ymir is freed and Eren dies. Without Ymir continuing her endless labor in that dimension, the entire system collapses. Eldians can no longer transform into Titans. The supernatural connection linking them all disappears. They become normal humans. The paths, which existed for 2,000 years as the invisible infrastructure of Titan powers, simply vanishes along with Ymir's suffering. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. The Founder and the Coordinate. The Founding Titan is the most powerful of all 9 special Titans that exist in Attack on Titan. It was the very first Titan that ever existed, and it holds abilities that no other Titan can match. The Founding Titan can control every other Titan. It can change the memories of Eldian people. It can alter their bodies and biology. It can force regular Eldians to transform into Titans, even massive ones like colossal Titans. Scientists from the nation of Marley who studied Titans discovered something important about the Founding Titan. They found out that it represents the point where all the paths cross together. Because of this discovery, people from Marley sometimes call the Founding Titan by another name, the Coordinate. The word coordinate describes the exact spot where all these invisible channels connecting Eldians meet. Think of it like a giant junction where countless roads come together. Every single Eldian person alive has a path connecting them back to this central point. The Founding Titan sits at the center of this massive network. When someone holds the Founding Titan and uses its powers, they are essentially sending commands through the coordinate to reach every connected person. This is why the Founding Titan can affect all Eldians simultaneously, no matter where they are in the world. The range has no limits. King Karl Fritz proved this when he used the Founding Titan to change the memories of every Eldian person living inside the walls on Paradise Island. Distance does not matter when working through the coordinate. However, there is a major catch to using the Founding Titan. Unlike the other 8 Titan powers, the Founding Titan has a bloodline restriction. Only people with royal blood can freely use its abilities. The royal family consists of the Fritz and Rice bloodlines, who are descendants of the original King Fritz and Ymir Fritz herself. If someone without royal blood inherits the Founding Titan, they cannot access its true powers under normal circumstances. The Titan transformation still works, but all the special abilities remain locked. They cannot control other Titans, they cannot alter memories, they cannot transform Eldians into Titans. The power exists inside them, but they simply cannot activate it. The reason for this restriction goes back to Ymir Fritz and her time in the paths. When Ymir gained the Titan power 2,000 years ago, she became enslaved by King Fritz. Even after her death, her spirit remained trapped in the paths dimension, still mentally enslaved to the royal family. Ymir exists in the paths as the source of all Titan powers. When anyone uses the Founding Titan, they are actually giving commands to Ymir, who then carries out those orders. But because of her slave mentality from her life and death, Ymir only obeys people with royal blood. She treats anyone from the Fritz bloodline as her master. She ignores commands from anyone else. This is why the royal blood requirement exists. Without royal blood, you cannot command Ymir, and without commanding Ymir, you cannot use the Founding Titan's powers. King Karl Fritz added another layer of restriction on top of the royal blood requirement. He created something called the Vow Renouncing War. This vow affects anyone from the royal family who actually inherits the Founding Titan. When a royal family member becomes the Founding Titan holder, King Fritz's ideology and will gets forced into their mind along with the power. No matter what they believed before inheriting the Titan, they suddenly become bound by his vow. They lose the will to fight. They accept whatever fate the world decides for Eldians, even if that means complete extinction. They cannot use the Founding Titan to defend their people, even in self-defense. This vow kept the Founding Titan hidden and unused for nearly 100 years within the Rice family on Paradise Island. The fascinating thing about this vow is that it only affects royal family members who actually inherit the Founding Titan itself. If someone with royal blood inherits one of the other 8 Titan powers instead, they do not get bound by the vow. Zeke Yeager is a perfect example. He has royal blood through his mother, Dina Fritz, and he inherited the Beast Titan. Because he holds the Beast Titan and not the Founding Titan, King Fritz's vow does not affect him. He can think and act freely. This created an interesting loophole that becomes crucial to the story. There is a way to bypass the royal blood restriction without getting trapped by the vow. If someone without royal blood inherits the Founding Titan, and that person makes physical contact with someone who has royal blood and also has Titan powers, then the Founding Titan can be activated temporarily. The person without royal blood who holds the Founding Titan needs to touch either a pure Titan with royal blood or someone with royal blood who has one of the 9 Titans. Regular physical contact with a royal-blooded human does not fully unlock the Founding Titan's powers, though it can trigger memory visions from previous Titan holders. Eren Yeager inherited the Founding Titan from his father Grisha in the year 845, right after the fall of Wall Maria. But Eren does not have royal blood. Neither of his parents came from the royal family. His father Grisha married Dina Fritz before coming to Paradise Island, and Dina did have royal blood, but that does not transfer to Eren. Royal blood only passes down if you are actually born from someone with royal blood. Eren was born from Grisha and Carla Yeager, and Carla had no royal blood. This meant Eren possessed the Founding Titan but could not use any of its special abilities. For years, he had this incredible power locked inside him without being able to access it. The first time Eren activated the Founding Titan's power happened during a desperate moment in the year 850. The Survey Corps was fighting to survive against the Armored Titan and other enemies. A pure Titan that the characters called the Smiling Titan appeared and ate Hannes, a soldier who had been trying to protect Eren and Mikasa. This was the same Titan that had killed Eren's mother 5 years earlier. As the Smiling Titan reached out to grab Eren, he punched its hand away in rage and desperation. The moment his fist made contact with the Titan's hand, something activated. Eren released a scream, and suddenly all the nearby pure Titans stopped attacking the Survey Corps. Instead, they all turned and rushed at the Smiling Titan. They tore it apart and ate it. Then Eren issued another command, and the Titans chased after Reiner's Armored Titan, allowing the Survey Corps to escape. At the time, nobody understood what happened, including Eren himself. He did not know he had the Founding Titan. He did not know about the royal blood requirement. He just thought he had somehow managed to control Titans for reasons he could not explain. Later, after learning more about his father's past, Eren put the pieces together. The Smiling Titan was actually Dina Fritz, his father's first wife. Dina had royal blood. Before she got turned into a Titan, she was the last living member of the royal Fritz family who stayed on the mainland. When Eren made physical contact with Dina's Titan form, he briefly fulfilled the condition needed to activate the Founding Titan. He touched a Titan with royal blood, which allowed him to temporarily use the Coordinates power to command the other Titans around him. This discovery terrified and excited the military leaders when they eventually learned about it. It meant Eren could potentially use the Founding Titan's powers, but only by touching someone with royal blood who also has Titan powers. The obvious candidate was Historia Rice, who had royal blood and was one of the few royal family members still alive. But turning Historia into a Titan just so Eren could use the Founding Titan seemed like a horrible option. She was their friend and ally, and she had become an important symbol as the rightful Queen of the Walls. Sacrificing her felt wrong to everyone involved. This is where Zeke Yeager entered the picture. Zeke is Eren's older half-brother through their shared father Grisha. Zeke's mother was Dina Fritz, which means Zeke has royal blood running through his veins. Zeke also inherited the Beast Titan, making him a Titan shifter. He represented another option for Eren to activate the Founding Titan without sacrificing Historia. If Zeke and Eren made physical contact while Zeke was in his Beast Titan form, or even just as a Titan shifter in human form, theoretically Eren could access the Founding Titan's full power. The major question was whether Zeke could be trusted, since he had spent years working for Marley against Paradise Island. Zeke had his own plans for the founding Titan. He wanted to use its power to sterilize all Eldian people, making them unable to have children. His logic was that this would end Eldian suffering by causing the race to peacefully die out over one generation. With no more Eldians, there would be no more people who could turn into Titans, and the centuries of war and hatred would finally end. Zeke needed Eren's founding Titan to accomplish this plan. Eren appeared to agree with Zeke's plan, though later it became clear he was lying about his true intentions. In the year 854, Eren and Zeke finally made their move to make contact during a battle in Shiganshina district. Eren transformed into his Attack Titan form, and Zeke transformed into his Beast Titan. They fought against the Survey Corps members who were trying to stop them. At a critical moment, Gabby Braun, a young Marleyan warrior candidate, shot Eren with an anti-Titan rifle. The shot hit Eren in the neck and completely severed his head from his body. Eren's head went flying through the air, separated from his body. In a desperate move, Zeke threw himself forward and caught Eren's severed head in his hand before it hit the ground. The moment Zeke's hand touched Eren's head, both brothers got transported into the paths. Even though Eren was basically dead from decapitation, his Titan power kept him barely alive for those few seconds of contact. That was enough. The conditions were met. Someone with the founding Titan made physical contact with someone of royal blood who also had Titan powers. The coordinate activated, and both Zeke and Eren found themselves standing in that strange desert world, covered in white sand, with the glowing tree in the distance. Time works differently in the paths compared to the real world. Zeke arrived first and waited for Eren. He described it as feeling like years passed while he waited, even though back in the real world almost no time went by at all. During this wait, Ymir Fritz rebuilt Eren's body from sand and water, the same way she had rebuilt Zeke's body when he nearly died from a thunder spear explosion earlier. Once Eren was whole again, he appeared in the paths to meet his brother. Here is where things got complicated. Both brothers had access to the founding Titan's power through their contact, but only the one with royal blood could actually command Ymir. Zeke expected to be in control since he had royal blood and Ymir would obey him. When he first tried to use the power, Ymir did respond to his commands. Zeke could create things in the Paths world. He even made chains to restrain Eren when they started arguing about their different plans. Zeke wanted to take Eren through their father's memories to show him how Grisha had supposedly brainwashed him. He wanted Eren to understand why sterilizing all Eldians was the right choice. But Eren had different plans. He never intended to follow through with Zeke's sterilization plan. Eren was using his brother to gain access to the paths, so he could reach Ymir directly. As they traveled through Grisha's memories using the paths, Eren demonstrated something shocking. He could influence the past through the paths. Grisha could see and hear Eren from the future, even though this made no logical sense. Eren used this ability to manipulate his father, pushing Grisha to kill the Rice family and steal the founding Titan, even though Grisha did not want to do it. The Attack Titan that Eren also possessed had the unique ability to see memories from future inheritors, and Eren exploited this to orchestrate events across time. When they finished viewing the memories, Zeke commanded Ymir to enact his sterilization plan. Ymir started to obey because Zeke had royal blood, but Eren broke free from the chains Zeke created and ran toward Ymir. He reached her and embraced her gently. Then he spoke to her not as a master, giving orders to a slave, but as one human being speaking to another. He told her she had a choice. She did not have to obey the royal family anymore. She was not a slave or a god, just a person who had suffered for 2,000 years. He asked her to lend him her strength if she chose to, but he made it clear he would not force her. For the first time in 2,000 years, someone treated Ymir like a human being with her own will. She cried. Then she made a choice. She decided to give her power to Eren instead of Zeke. This shocked everyone, especially Zeke, who could not believe Ymir would disobey someone with royal blood. But Eren had freed her from her mental slavery to the Fritz family. Once she chose to follow Eren, the royal blood requirement no longer mattered in the same way. Ymir had decided for herself who she would help. With Ymir's cooperation, Eren gained access to the full power of the founding Titan. He used it to transform into a massive Titan form even larger than the colossal Titans. Then he activated the power to send a telepathic message through the coordinate to every single Eldian person in the world. In this message, he announced his intentions. He would use the founding Titan to release all the colossal Titans trapped inside the 3 walls on Paradise Island. These millions of giant titans would march across the world and destroy all life outside the island. This event became known as the Rumbling. The coordinate gave Eren the ability to communicate with and control every subject of Ymir simultaneously. He could bring people into the paths to talk with them individually. He created separate experiences for different people. He showed Mikasa an alternate reality where they ran away together. He explained his true intentions to Armin during a private conversation in the paths. He told his friends that he wanted them to stop him and become heroes by killing him, which would make the world see them as saviors instead of enemies. All of these communications happened through the coordinate, which connected Eren to every Eldian consciousness. However, Eren's full access to the Founding Titan's power had a dependency. He had gained Ymir's cooperation, which allowed him to use the power without constantly touching someone with royal blood. But there was still a connection. During the final battle to stop the Rumbling, Levi managed to kill Zeke by cutting off his head. The moment Zeke died, the Rumbling stopped moving. All the colossal titans became still. Eren lost access to the Founding Titan's full power because his physical connection to royal blood through Zeke was severed. This suggests that even with Ymir's cooperation, some link to royal blood remained necessary to maintain the Founding Titan's activation, or perhaps Zeke's death broke the conditions that allowed Eren into the paths in the first place. The Founding Titan's abilities are activated by screaming. The person holding the Founding Titan does not even need to be in Titan form to use these abilities. A regular human scream works just as well. The scream does not have to be loud or even a true scream. Frida Rice demonstrated this when she erased Historia's memories just by talking normally to her. The scream functions as a command that travels through the coordinate to all connected Titans or Eldians. When someone screams with the Founding Titan's power active, that scream becomes a command that must be followed. The Founding Titan can alter memories of any subject of Ymir. King Karl Fritz used this ability to erase the memories of all Eldians living within the walls, making them forget about the world outside and their people's history. Frida Rice used it multiple times to erase Historia's memories of their conversations. However, these erased memories are not completely gone. They can sometimes resurface in dreams, as Historia experienced dreams about Frida, even though she consciously forgot their meetings. Anyone who is not a subject of Ymir remains unaffected by this ability. The Founding Titan cannot alter the memories of people from other races. The Founding Titan can modify the bodies and biology of subjects of Ymir. It can change their physical structure, alter their genetics, and transform them into Titans of any size. Karl Fritz demonstrated the upper limit of this when he commanded Ymir to create hundreds of thousands of colossal Titans to build the 3 walls around Paradise Island. Each of these Titans was at least 50 meters tall. The Founding Titan can forcibly transform regular Eldians into pure Titans through a scream command, and it can potentially reverse these transformations as well, though this was rarely demonstrated in the series. One character named Tom Saver, who studied Titan powers, made an interesting observation about the relationship between the Founding Titan and subjects of Ymir. He said that all subjects of Ymir are essentially parts of the Founding Titan's body, no matter where they are in the world. This description makes sense when you understand the coordinate. Every Eldian is connected through the paths to the central point where the Founding Titan sits. These connections are so deep that the Founding Titan can influence and control them as if they were extensions of itself. The physical distance between people means nothing when they are all linked through this metaphysical network. The Founding Titan has control over all other Titans. It can command pure Titans to move, attack specific targets, or stop moving entirely. It can influence the 9 Titans as well, though Titan shifters have some ability to resist these commands. When Eren first used the coordinate to control Titans against the Smiling Titan, Reiner and Bertolt felt the influence of the Founding Titan, but were able to resist it because they were intelligent Titan shifters, rather than mindless pure Titans. Still, they felt compelled to obey, and had to actively fight against that compulsion. The Founding Titan was the only one of the 9 Titans to have a bloodline restriction. None of the other 8 Titan powers require royal blood to use. The Armored Titan, Attack Titan, Colossal Titan, Female Titan, Beast Titan, Jaw Titan, Cart Titan, and Warhammer Titan all work at full capacity, regardless of who inherits them. Only the Founding Titan locks most of its abilities behind the royal blood requirement. This makes the Founding Titan simultaneously the most powerful and most restricted of all the Titans. Its potential exceeds every other Titan combined, but accessing that potential requires very specific conditions that are difficult to achieve. Interestingly, when Zeke inherited the Beast Titan, he gained some abilities similar to the Founding Titan, despite not actually possessing the Founding Titan himself. This happened because he has royal blood. If Zeke's spinal fluid entered another person's body, that person became connected to Zeke through a special path. Zeke could then command that person to transform into a Titan by screaming while in his Beast Titan form. He could also give commands to these Titans he created. Essentially, Zeke's Beast Titan acted as a limited version of the coordinate for people connected to him through his spinal fluid. This was not the true power of the Founding Titan, but it showed how royal blood enhanced Titan abilities even when the person did not hold the Founding Titan. The appearance of the Founding Titan varies between users. When members of the Rice family transformed into the Founding Titan, their eyes changed color. Frida Rice normally had blue eyes, but when she transformed into the Founding Titan, her eyes glowed purple. When Grisha stole the Founding Titan from Frida, and his normally green eyes also turned purple. This visual indicator showed that the Founding Titan was active. Eren's final Founding Titan form looked completely different from anything seen before. After Ymir gave him her full cooperation, he transformed into an absolutely massive skeletal Titan that dwarfed even the colossal Titans. This form was called the Doomsday Titan, and it had the power to control the millions of colossal Titans that made up the walls. Throughout Attack on Titan's history, the Founding Titan passed through many hands. Ymir Fritz was the first holder 2,000 years ago. After her death and the forced cannibalization by her 3 daughters, the Founding Titan's power became part of the distributed Titan powers. Eventually, one bloodline within the royal family maintained control of the Founding Titan specifically, passing it down through generations. The Rice family held it for over a century on Paradise Island, keeping it secret from the public by pretending to be a minor noble family instead of the true royal line. Uri Rice held it and passed it to Frida Rice. Grisha Jaeger took it by force when he attacked the Reese family in their underground chapel. Grisha then passed both the Founding Titan and his attack Titan to his son Eren by allowing Eren to eat him in pure Titan form. The coordinate represents more than just a geographical or spiritual location. It represents the fundamental connection that ties all Eldians together across space and time. It is why memories can transfer between Titan shifters. It is why the 9 Titans always find a new host among the subjects of Ymir when the previous holder dies. It is why the Founding Titan can affect every Eldian simultaneously, regardless of distance. Everything about being a subject of Ymir connects back to this single point where all paths converge. The Founding Titan sits at the center of this system, acting as the control mechanism for the entire network. Whoever controls the Founding Titan controls the coordinate, and whoever controls the coordinate can potentially control all of Eldian society. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Ymir Fritz, slavery, and the origin of Titans. Around 2,000 years before the main events of Attack on Titan, a small village existed somewhere on the mainland. The name of this village is not recorded in history. The people who lived there were simple villagers trying to survive in a harsh world. One day, a violent tribe called the Eldians attacked the village. The Eldians were a warlike people who raided settlements and took what they wanted by force. They slaughtered many people in the village, including the parents of a young girl. This girl's name was Ymir. The Eldians took Ymir and other survivors as slaves. They brought them back to the Eldian settlement to serve their tribe. The Eldians had a brutal custom for dealing with captured slaves. They cut out the tongues of everyone they enslaved. This prevented the slaves from speaking and made them even more powerless. Ymir had her tongue cut out along with all the other captured people from her village. She became property of the Eldian tribe and existed only to serve them. The leader of the Eldians during this time was a man simply known as Fritz. He would later be remembered in history as King Fritz, though at this point the Eldians were just a small tribe rather than a kingdom or empire. Ymir worked as a slave under harsh conditions. She had no rights and no voice. One day, while tending to a pen where the Eldians kept pigs, Ymir opened the gate. The pigs escaped and ran free. Whether Ymir did this intentionally out of sympathy for the trapped animals or whether it happened by accident remains unclear. What matters is what happened next. King Fritz gathered all the slaves together and demanded to know who was responsible for freeing the pigs. He threatened to gouge out the eyes of every single slave unless someone confessed or was identified. The other slaves, desperate to avoid this horrific punishment, pointed at Ymir. They sacrificed her to save themselves. King Fritz decided on a twisted form of punishment. He told Ymir that she was free. This seemed like a mercy at first, but it was actually the opposite. Fritz released Ymir into the woods and gave his men permission to hunt her for sport. They chased her through the forest, shooting arrows at her as she ran. Ymir was wounded by multiple arrows as she fled desperately for her life. She had no destination and no plan, only the instinct to survive and escape the men hunting her. Eventually, she stumbled upon an unusually large tree in the wilderness. This tree was absolutely massive, much bigger than any normal tree around it. At the base of this giant tree, there was a large opening, like a cave or chasm. Wounded and exhausted, Ymir saw the opening as a possible shelter from her pursuers. She stepped inside the tree, hoping to hide. But she did not know that there was a sinkhole beneath her feet hidden in the darkness of the tree's interior. As soon as she stepped onto what she thought was solid ground, she fell. She plummeted down into a deep underground space beneath the roots of the massive tree. At the bottom of this cavern was a pool of strange liquid. Ymir landed in this pool, her wounded body sinking into the mysterious substance. In the pool lived a creature unlike anything seen on Earth's surface. This creature had the appearance of a glowing spine or a shining centipede. It resembled ancient organisms like worms or lobopods, but was clearly something unique and extraordinary. Scientists in the Attack on Titan world would later give this creature a name, the source of all living matter. Some people called it other names depending on their perspective. Marleyans would call it the devil of all Earth, but these were just attempts to explain something that nobody truly understood. The creature sensed Ymir's presence in the pool. It reached out and made physical contact with her spine. The moment contact occurred, something incredible and terrifying happened. The creature fused with Ymir's body, attaching itself to her spine at the point where it connects to the rest of the body. This fusion triggered a dramatic transformation. Ymir's body began to change and grow. Her human form became something else entirely. She transformed into the very first Titan that ever existed. Her Titan form was enormous, towering high above the tree line of the forest. Her body had light-colored hair, a distinctly female figure, and long protruding ribs. The most striking feature was her face, which had no visible skin, muscle, or eyes. Only a bare skull showed where her face should have been. Despite her monstrous new appearance, she was not a mindless creature. Ymir retained her human consciousness and intelligence inside this giant body. With her newfound power, Ymir climbed out of the underground cavern and emerged from the base of the giant tree. Her hunters from the Eldian tribe saw her transformation and were horrified. They watched as this massive creature rose up before them. Instead of using her power to take revenge on the people who had enslaved and hunted her, Ymir did something that reveals the depth of her psychological conditioning as a slave. She returned to the Eldian settlement. She went back to King Fritz and submitted herself to him once again. Despite possessing the power to crush him and the entire tribe, she remained mentally enslaved. Years of brutal treatment had broken her spirit so completely that even with godlike physical power, she could not break free from her slave mentality. King Fritz immediately recognized the opportunity that Ymir's transformation presented. He now controlled a weapon more powerful than any army. He began commanding Ymir to use her Titan form to serve the Eldian tribe. She used her immense strength to clear land and make it suitable for farming. She built roads connecting different parts of Eldian territory. She constructed bridges across rivers and between mountains, accomplishing engineering feats that would have been impossible for normal humans. Under Fritz's orders, Ymir also became a weapon of war. The Eldians had many enemies and rivals for territory and resources. Their greatest enemy was the nation of Marley. King Fritz commanded Ymir to attack and destroy Marleyan military forces. She did so without question or hesitation, wiping out entire armies. The Marleyans had no defense against a creature of this size and power. No weapon they possessed could harm her Titan form. The Eldian tribe, which had been small and relatively weak, began to grow into a dominant power thanks entirely to Ymir. As a supposed reward for her loyal service, King Fritz decided to take Ymir as his concubine. He made her bear his children. This was not done out of love or affection. Fritz saw Ymir as a valuable tool and wanted to keep her close to him. He also wanted to ensure that her power could potentially pass to his bloodline. Ymir had no choice in this matter. She was still a slave, just a slave who now also served as the mother of the king's children. Over the next 13 years, Ymir gave birth to 3 daughters. Their names were Maria, Rose, and Sina. Some historical records spell the third daughter's name as Sheena, but both versions refer to the same person. These three girls would become extremely important to the future of the Titan powers and the Eldian people. Throughout these 13 years, Ymir continued to serve King Fritz without question. She destroyed his enemies, primarily the Marleyans who resisted Eldian expansion. She helped transform the Eldian tribe into an empire. She built infrastructure and created wealth for Fritz and his people. She raised their three daughters while also functioning as Fritz's weapon and tool. Despite the slightly elevated status of being the king's concubine and mother to his children, Ymir remained fundamentally a slave. Fritz showed her no genuine love or respect. He kept other women around him as wives and mistresses, openly showing affection to them, while treating Ymir merely as useful property. This humiliation happened in Ymir's presence, reminding her that despite everything she had done and sacrificed, she still meant nothing to Fritz beyond her utility. During this time, many people developed different interpretations of who Ymir was and what she represented. The Eldians came to see her as a goddess or a divine miracle given to them by higher powers. They believed she and her descendants were chosen children of God, special and superior to other peoples. This religious reverence served to justify Eldian expansion and domination of other nations. On the other hand, the Marleyans and other conquered peoples saw Ymir as a devil or demon. They created propaganda claiming she had made a deal with an evil force called the Devil of All Earth. According to Marleyan stories, Ymir gained her power through wickedness and used it to bring destruction and suffering to innocent people. Both of these interpretations were wrong. Ymir was neither a goddess nor a devil. She was simply a young woman who had suffered terrible trauma and abuse, and who remained psychologically trapped in a slave mentality despite gaining immense physical power. 13 years after Ymir first made contact with the spine-like creature beneath the tree, a significant event occurred that would end her life in the physical world. The Eldian Empire had grown powerful enough that some of their former enemies were surrendering rather than continuing to fight. One day, a group of Marleyan soldiers approached King Fritz to formally surrender and pledge their loyalty to Eldia. Fritz accepted their surrender and had them bow before him. Ymir stood nearby with her three daughters, as she often did during official ceremonies. What nobody knew was that one of these surrendering soldiers harbored deep hatred for King Fritz. He had concealed a spear and was waiting for an opportunity to use it. During the ceremony, the Marleyan soldier suddenly pulled out his hidden spear and hurled it at King Fritz with all his strength. The spear flew toward the king, aimed to kill him. Ymir saw the spear coming. Acting on instinct and her ingrained compulsion to protect her master, she threw herself in front of Fritz. The spear struck Ymir instead of the king. It entered her body under her armpit and pierced into her torso, hitting her spine. The attack was successful in the sense that the spear found its target in a human body, but it failed to kill King Fritz. The Marleyan soldier and his companions were immediately executed by Eldian guards for this assassination attempt. King Fritz looked at Ymir as she lay wounded with the spear stuck in her body. He seemed unconcerned about her injury. He told her to get up and continue working. He insisted that she was born to serve him and that such a minor wound could not possibly kill someone with the power of the Titans. He believed her Titan regeneration ability would heal the injury quickly, but something different happened. Ymir did not get up. She did not heal herself. Instead, she died from the wound. This confused Fritz and everyone present. How could the founding Titan, who had destroyed entire armies and could regenerate from any damage, die from a single spear thrust? The answer lies in the fact that Ymir chose to die. She had the power to heal herself but decided not to use it. After 13 years of endless servitude, after being used as a weapon and a tool, after bearing children who would likely face the same fate, Ymir finally found a way to escape her horrible existence. She allowed herself to die. The moment Ymir died in the physical world, her consciousness or soul went somewhere else. She found herself in a mysterious realm that existed outside normal space and time. This place would later become known as the Paths, or the Coordinate. It appeared as an endless desert of white sand under a sky filled with glowing lights like auroras. At the center stood a massive tree made of light with branches spreading in all directions. Each branch represented a connection to a living descendant of Ymir. When Ymir first arrived, only 3 branches existed, likely representing her 3 daughters. This realm existed in a dimension where time flowed differently than in the physical world. What felt like years in the paths could pass in an instant in the real world, and vice versa. Back in the physical world, King Fritz stood over Ymir's dead body. He was not grieving or mourning, he was panicking about losing the power of the Titans. In his mind, Ymir's value was entirely tied to her Titan power, and he could not accept that this power might die with her. In his desperation, Fritz came up with a horrific solution. He ordered his men to butcher Ymir's corpse, cutting it into pieces. Then he commanded his 3 daughters, Maria, Rose, and Sina, to eat their mother's remains. He forced them to consume every piece of Ymir's body, including her spine where the source of the Titan power resided. The 3 young girls had to eat their own mother's dead flesh. This traumatic and grotesque act accomplished what Fritz hoped it would. The power of the Titans did not die with Ymir. Instead, it transferred to her 3 daughters through cannibalism. When they consumed her body, they inherited her Titan abilities. However, because 3 people now shared what had originally been one complete power, that power became divided. Each daughter received a portion of Ymir's abilities rather than the full strength she had possessed. This was the beginning of the division that would eventually create the 9 Titans. On his deathbed later in life, King Fritz gave final instructions to his daughters and their descendants. He commanded them to continue the same practice he had forced upon them. When they eventually had children of their own, those children would need to eat their parents' bodies to inherit the Titan powers. This cannibalistic cycle should continue generation after generation, with children eating their parents and grandchildren eating their children. Fritz wanted to ensure that the blood of Ymir would never die out. He wanted the Eldian Empire to rule the world forever through the power of the Titans. His daughters and their descendants followed these instructions, creating a dark tradition that would last for nearly 2,000 years. As Ymir's bloodline spread and more people were born descended from her and Fritz, the 3 divided portions of Titan power divided further. Eventually, 9 distinct Titan powers emerged. These became known as the 9 Titans. One of them remained the founding Titan, which retained the greatest power and the ability to command all other Titans. The other 8 were the Attack Titan, the Colossal Titan, the Armored Titan, the Female Titan, the Beast Titan, the Jaw Titan, the Cart Titan, and the Warhammer Titan. Each had unique abilities and characteristics. Every person who inherited one of these powers through eating a previous holder became what is called a Titan Shifter, someone who can transform between human and Titan form at will. All people descended from Ymir and Fritz became known as subjects of Ymir or Eldians. These people carry Ymir's blood in their veins, which gives them the unique ability to transform into Titans. No person from any other race or bloodline can become a Titan. This racial trait became both a source of power and a curse for Eldians. Their ability to become Titans made them feared and hated by other peoples. It also meant they could be forcibly transformed into mindless pure Titans through injection of Titan spinal fluid. The entire complicated history of Attack on Titan, the Walls, the Titan invasions, the conflict between Eldia and Marley, Nodia, traces back to Ymir's original transformation and the subsequent spread of her bloodline. Meanwhile, in the paths, Ymir did not find the peace in death that she might have hoped for. Her consciousness remained trapped in that strange dimension. Even death could not free her from servitude to the Fritz family. She discovered that she still had a role to perform. Whenever one of her descendants with Titan powers called upon that power to transform, Ymir had to build the Titan body. In the paths, she gathered sand and used a bucket of water to mold and shape each Titan from scratch. She created every single Titan transformation that occurred over the next 2,000 years. She built the bodies of Titan shifters when they transformed. She constructed replacement body parts when Titan shifters healed from injuries. She even built the colossal wall Titans that would eventually surround Paradis Island. This work in the paths took tremendous time and effort from Ymir's perspective. Building a single human body for someone could feel like years of constant labor to her. But because time in the paths exists separately from time in the physical world, these transformations appeared instantaneous to people in the real world. A Titan shifter would call upon their power and immediately transform, not knowing that in another dimension, Ymir had spent what felt like years building their body. She did all this work not because she chose to, but because she remained enslaved even in death. Her slave mentality persisted into the afterlife. She believed she had to obey anyone from the royal family, any descendant of King Fritz who commanded her. For 2,000 years she continued this endless labor, building and rebuilding Titan bodies without rest. The circumstances of Ymir's life and death created several lasting effects that shaped all of Titan history. The first was what became known as the Curse of Ymir. Because Ymir died exactly 13 years after gaining Titan powers, every person who inherited one of the 9 Titans afterward faced the same limitation. No matter how young or healthy they were when they received Titan powers, they would die exactly 13 years later. This curse could not be avoided or prevented. It meant that every Titan shifter was living on a countdown from the moment they inherited their power. Many Titan shifters died looking much older than they actually were. Their bodies aged rapidly by the curse. The curse exists because Ymir's own experience set the template. Her 13 years as a Titan became the limit for everyone who came after her. The second lasting effect was the royal blood restriction on the founding Titan. Because Ymir remained mentally enslaved to King Fritz even after death, she only obeys commands from people with royal blood, descendants of Fritz and Ymir who belong to the royal family bloodline. Anyone else who inherits the founding Titan cannot access its true powers without touching someone who has royal blood and also has Titan powers. This restriction prevented the founding Titan from being used by people outside the royal family for most of history. It meant that even if someone stole the founding Titan from the royal family, they could not use it without making contact with a royal-blooded Titan. The third effect was the creation of the paths themselves. The paths exist because Ymir needed some way to continue serving her descendants across time and space. They represent the connections between all subjects of Ymir, linking them to their common ancestor. Through the paths, Titan powers can transfer from one person to another. Memories can pass between Titan shifters across generations. The founding Titan can send commands to all Eldians simultaneously. Everything supernatural about Titans and the subjects of Ymir operates through the paths, and the paths exist because Ymir's consciousness remained trapped in that dimension, continuing to serve. People in the Attack on Titan world developed many different stories and beliefs about Ymir over the centuries. The historical truth became obscured by propaganda from different factions. Eldians created religious stories portraying Ymir as a kind and compassionate goddess who chose to serve her people out of love. They claimed she made a deal with divine powers to gain strength to help humanity. Marleyans created counter-propaganda, portraying Ymir as wicked and selfish, claiming she made a deal with the devil and used her ill-gotten power to oppress and destroy innocent people. Both versions were created to serve political purposes. The Eldians wanted to justify their historical domination and make their people feel chosen and special. The Marleyans wanted to justify their hatred of Eldians and their cruel treatment of Eldians in the present day. The truth that very few people in the Attack on Titan world knew was simpler and more tragic than either propaganda version. Ymir was not a goddess or a devil. She was not particularly kind or particularly evil. She was a traumatized young woman who had been enslaved, abused, hunted, and psychologically broken. She gained incredible power by accident through contact with a mysterious creature, but that power could not free her from the mental chains of slavery. She served King Fritz not because she was divinely commanded to, and not because she made a deal with evil forces. She served him because abuse and conditioning had destroyed her sense of self-worth and autonomy. She genuinely believed her only purpose was to serve. Even when she finally escaped through death, her broken psyche kept her enslaved in the afterlife. This cycle only ended 2,000 years later when someone finally treated Ymir as a human being rather than a tool or a goddess. Eren Yeager eventually reached the paths and met Ymir face to face. Unlike everyone else who had commanded her over millennia, Eren spoke to her as an equal. He told her she had the right to choose for herself. He said she did not have to obey anyone, not even people with royal blood. He asked her to make her own decision about what she wanted. This was the first time in over 2,000 years anyone had acknowledged Ymir's agency in humanity. She cried at finally being seen and spoken to as a person. She made a choice. She decided to stop serving the royal family and instead help Eren with his plans. This began the chain of events that would eventually lead to the end of all Titan powers and Ymir's final release from her torment. The origin of Titans traces back to one young girl's desperate attempt to survive while being hunted. It traces to a mysterious creature that fused with her spine. It traces to a cruel king who enslaved and exploited her. It traces to a slave mentality so deeply ingrained that even godlike power could not break it. And it traces to a tragic death followed by 2,000 years of continued servitude in another dimension. The massive walls, the countless deaths, the conflict between nations, the discrimination against Eldians, the fear of Titans, Ymir's original transformation, and the horrific way King Fritz forced his daughters to inherit her power through cannibalism. Understanding Ymir's true story reveals that the Titans were never a divine blessing or a demonic curse. They were the result of one person's trauma, one creature's mysterious biology, and one tyrant's ruthless exploitation of both. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Karl Fritz's vow and mass memory editing. Karl Fritz, the 145th king of Eldia, made a choice that trapped his people in a prison of forgotten memories. He moved thousands of Eldians to an island, built 3 massive walls around them, and used the founding Titan to erase their memories of the outside world. Then he did something even more extreme. He placed a vow on the founding Titan itself, a magical promise that would force every future king with royal blood to refuse war, no matter what happened. Even if enemies attacked and people died, the royal family could never fight back. This vow turned the most powerful weapon in the world into a useless tool for peace. To understand why Karl Fritz did this, you need to understand what came before. For hundreds of years, the Eldian Empire ruled the world through the power of the Titans. The Fritz family controlled the founding Titan, the strongest of all 9 Titans, which gave them the power to control other Titans and even change the memories of every Eldian person. But the Empire was not a peaceful place. Different noble families that served under the Fritz kings constantly fought each other for control of the other 8 Titans. This civil war went on for generations. Brother fought brother, families betrayed each other, Titans tore through battlefields as these powerful families competed for more power and more control. Karl Fritz was born into this violent world. When he became the 145th king and inherited the founding Titan, he felt deeply ashamed of what his ancestors had done. He looked at the blood on his family's hands and felt sick. The Eldian Empire had used Titans to conquer other nations. They had enslaved people from Marley and other countries for centuries. Karl Fritz believed the world would be a better place if Eldians and Titans never existed at all. He felt that his people were sinners who deserved punishment for the crimes of their ancestors. Unlike previous kings who used the founding Titan to maintain order and crush rebellions, Karl Fritz wanted something different. He wanted to end the violence once and for all, even if it meant the destruction of his own people. So Karl Fritz came up with a secret plan. He worked together with the Tiber family, who controlled the Warhammer Titan. Together, they decided to trick everyone. They would make it look like the Eldian Empire fell because of a Marleyan hero, not because the king himself wanted it to fall. The Tibers helped create a fake hero named Helos, a Marleyan who supposedly defeated the Eldians through clever tricks and bravery. While the world believed this hero story, Karl Fritz did something no one expected. He abandoned the mainland entirely. He gathered as many Eldians as he could and moved them across the ocean to a remote island called Paradis. The journey to Paradis Island marked the beginning of Karl Fritz's grand plan. When the Eldians arrived on this new land, the king used the founding Titan's power to do something incredible and terrible at the same time. He commanded Ymir through the founder to create and harden countless colossal-class Titans into 3 concentric walls. These giants, each one 50 meters tall, stood shoulder to shoulder in 3 enormous circles, their hardened skin forming solid walls that would protect the Eldians inside. The 3 walls were named Maria, Rose, and Sina, after the 3 daughters of Ymir Fritz from 2,000 years ago. These walls were not just barriers, they were a shield made of countless sleeping Titans, ready to wake up if anyone tried to break through. Karl Fritz told the outside world that if any nation attacked Paradis Island, he would unleash these colossal-class Titans to flatten the entire Earth. It was the ultimate threat. The world could destroy Paradis if they wanted, but they would pay with their own destruction. It sounded like the promise of a powerful king who would defend his people no matter what. But this threat was actually a lie. Karl Fritz had no intention of ever using those Titans for war. Once the walls stood tall and strong, Karl Fritz prepared for the next part of his plan. He gathered all the Eldians who had come with him to Paradis Island. These people were confused and scared. They did not understand why their king had abandoned the mainland. They did not know about the civil war or the crimes of the Eldian Empire. They were just ordinary people trying to survive. Karl Fritz used the founding Titan one more time. He screamed again, and this scream did not create Titans. Instead, it reached into the minds of every subject of Ymir on the island. It grabbed their memories like pages from a book and tore them out. In an instant, every Eldian on Paradis forgot about the Great Titan War. They forgot about the Eldian Empire and its conquests. They forgot about Marley and the other nations across the ocean. They forgot about the technology and weapons that existed in the outside world. They forgot that humanity existed anywhere beyond the walls. The king replaced these memories with new ones. He made them believe that Titans had wiped out all of humanity except for the people inside the walls. He made them think the walls had always been there, protecting the last remnants of the human race from monsters that wanted to eat them. The Eldians woke up with false memories, living in a carefully constructed lie. But the memory wipe did not work on everyone. The Ackerman family, though they were subjects of Ymir, had been altered by Eldian Titan science in the past, which made them immune to the founding Titans' memory manipulation. The Asian clan, specifically the Azumabito line from Hizuru, were not subjects of Ymir at all, so the founders' memory rewriting could not affect them either. These families remembered everything. They knew the truth about the outside world. Karl Fritz feared these people would spread the truth and ruin his paradise of ignorance. Because the founder could not alter the Ackermans or the Asian clan, the regime persecuted both, driving them near extinction. One Asian line survived in secrecy. The Ackermans were hunted down, murdered, and driven to the edge of destruction. Only a handful survived by hiding or running to the most remote corners of the island. The few Ackermans who lived told their children nothing about the truth, hoping that ignorance would protect them from the king's wrath. With the memory wipe complete and the resistant families dealt with, Karl Fritz took one final step to ensure his plan would last. He changed his family name from Fritz to Reese. The royal family would now live in secret as minor nobles near the Orvud district in Walsina. To hide their true identity, Karl Fritz set up a fake king, a person from a different bloodline who would sit on the throne and act as the public face of the monarchy. This puppet king would rule in name only. The real power stayed with the Reese family, hidden in the shadows. The true kings of the walls would pass down the founding Titan in secret rituals held in an underground cavern beneath a chapel. Every 13 years, when the current holder was about to die from the curse of Ymir, they would pass the Titan to the next family member by letting themselves be eaten. But Karl Fritz did one more thing, something that would define the fate of Paradise Island for the next 100 years. He made a vow. This was not just any promise. It was a vow renouncing war, bound to the founding Titan itself, through the mysterious power of the paths. Karl Fritz used the founding Titan to ensure that his ideology, his belief that Eldians deserved to be punished for their sins, would live on even after his death. He made it so that anyone with royal blood who inherited the founding Titan would also inherit his will, his memories, and his unbreakable desire for peace through acceptance of destruction. The vow worked in two ways. The vow imposes Karl's pacifist will on royal founding holders, practically preventing wartime use. Non-royal holders are not bound by the vow, but they can only fully access the founder's powers by contacting someone with royal blood. In practice, this meant that anyone with royal blood who inherited the founding Titan could not fight back, even in self-defense. Even if enemies attacked and slaughtered their people, the royal family had to stand by and accept it. Karl Fritz believed this was justice. He thought the Eldians had committed such terrible crimes that if the world decided to wipe them out, they should accept that fate as punishment. He wanted his descendants to live in temporary peace inside the walls, enjoying a paradise that would eventually be destroyed when the world came for revenge. The vow did something even more sinister to the people who inherited it. It changed their personality. It possessed them. When someone from the Rice family ate the previous founding Titan holder and gained the power, Karl Fritz's memories and will flooded into their mind. Suddenly, they would feel the weight of centuries of guilt. They would believe, deep in their soul, that a world ruled by Titans was somehow true peace. They would preach about love and compassion, and the need to accept whatever fate the world decided for them. Even if they had disagreed with this philosophy before inheriting the Titan, even if they had begged their predecessor to use the founding Titan to stop the Titans from eating people, their minds would change completely once they gained the power. This happened to Uri Reese. Before he inherited the founding Titan from his father, Uri begged the old king to exterminate the Titans and save humanity. His brother Rod stood with him, both of them pleading for their father to use the founding Titan's power to protect their people. But their father refused, his eyes dark with the influence of Karl Fritz's vow. When it came time to pass the founding Titan to a new generation, Uri volunteered. He ate his father in the underground ritual, and the moment the power transferred, everything changed. Uri's eyes darkened. The vow took hold of him. He forgot his disagreements with his father. He accepted Karl Fritz's ideology completely. He began to speak about peace and paradise and how humanity inside the walls deserved an age of peace before their inevitable destruction. Rod watched his brother transform, helpless to stop it. Frida Rice, Yuri's niece, went through the same experience. When she was 15 years old, she participated in the ritual to inherit the founding titan from her uncle Yuri. Frida was a kind and gentle person who loved her half-sister Historia and taught her to read and write. But after she gained the founding titan, something changed inside her. She became deeply conflicted and melancholy under the vow's burden. She lovingly guided Historia, yet echoed fatalistic language about sin. She would call the people inside the walls sinners. She would tell Historia that the world was full of pain and hardship, that they needed to help each other survive. The vow's power showed most clearly on the worst day of Frida's life. In the year 845, the colossal titan and armored titan attacked Wall Maria. These were titan shifters sent by Marley to destroy the walls and steal the founding titan. The breach in Wall Maria let hundreds of pure titans flood into the area where ordinary people lived. Thousands of Eldians died. They were eaten alive, crushed, or torn apart by the mindless titans. Among the dead was Carla Jaeger, the mother of a young boy named Aaron. That same night, a man named Grisha Jaeger rushed to the underground chapel where the Reese family held their ceremonies. Grisha was an Eldian from Marley who had come to Paradise years ago with a mission. He possessed the Attack Titan, one of the 9 titans. He burst into the cavern and found Frida with her father Rod and her siblings. Grisha fell to his knees and begged. He pleaded with Frida to use the founding titan to stop the attacking titans. He told her that people were dying right now, that she had the power to save them, that she needed to act before more innocent lives were lost. Frida looked at him with dark eyes and refused. The vow renouncing war would not allow her to fight back, even to save her own people. She told Grisha no. She stood there with the most powerful force in the world at her command and chose to do nothing while her people died. Grisha begged harder. He shouted and cried and told her about the horrors happening above ground. But Frida's will was not her own. Karl Fritz's ideology controlled her. She could not break free from the vow. She accepted that this attack was part of the punishment Eldians deserved. She believed that if the world wanted to destroy Paradise, then Paradise should accept that fate without resistance. Grisha realized in that moment that Frida would never help. The vow had her completely in its grip, so he made a terrible choice. He transformed into his Attack Titan and fought Frida. She transformed too, becoming a 15-meter founding titan with long dark hair. But Frida had only been a titan shifter for a short time. She was young and inexperienced. She did not know how to fight. And even if she had been skilled, the vow prevented her from using the founding titan's full power in combat. Grisha overpowered her quickly. He tore her out of her titan body and devoured her, taking the founding titan for himself. Then Grisha turned on the rest of the Rice family. He killed Frida's siblings and her mother, slaughtering them all to make sure no one with royal blood could take back the founding titan and be controlled by the vow. Only Rod Rice escaped, fleeing through the underground passages while Grisha murdered his family. Rod would survive to tell the story, but he could never reclaim what was lost. The founding titan now belonged to someone without royal blood, someone who was not bound by Karl Fritz's vow. Grisha fled the scene and went searching for his family. He found his adopted daughter Mikasa and his son Aaron, but learned that his wife Carla had been killed in the attack. Overwhelmed by grief and knowing he only had a short time left to live because of the 13-year limit on Titan shifters, Grisha took Aaron deep into the forest. He injected his son with Titan serum. Aaron transformed into a mindless pure Titan and ate his father, inheriting both the Attack Titan and the Founding Titan. Aaron would have no memory of this for the next 5 years. For the royal family, the loss of the Founding Titan was a disaster. Rod Reese spent years trying to figure out how to get it back. He had one remaining child, an illegitimate daughter named Historia who lived in secret on a farm. To protect her from being murdered by the government, which viewed illegitimate royals as an embarrassment, Rod gave her a new identity. Historia became Krista Lenz and joined the military, where she served in the Survey Corps. Rod watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reclaim the Founding Titan and place it back in the hands of someone with royal blood who would be controlled by the vow. But Eren Yeager posed a unique problem. Because he did not have royal blood, the vow did not affect him. He possessed the Founding Titan but could not use its full powers. He needed to touch someone with royal blood to activate the coordinate. When Eren accidentally touched Dina Fritz, a pure Titan who was actually the former wife of his father Grisha and the mother of Zeke, he briefly accessed the founding Titan's power. He commanded nearby Titans to attack Reiner and Bertolt, the armored and colossal Titans who had attacked Wall Maria. In that moment, Eren discovered the key to breaking the vow. The founding Titan could work if a non-royal holder touched someone with royal blood. The vow only activated when someone with royal blood actually possessed the Titan. This discovery would change everything. The Survey Corps and the military leaders of Paradise Island realized they had a way to use the founding Titan without being controlled by Karl Fritz's pacifist ideology. But it required keeping someone with royal blood close to Eren, someone who could activate his power through physical contact. Historia was the obvious choice, but Eren refused to consider turning her into a Titan just to use her as a tool. He cared about her too much to sacrifice her freedom like that. Karl Fritz's vow renouncing war controlled the actions of the Rice family for over a century. Generation after generation of kings and queens inherited the founding Titan and found themselves trapped by the ideology of their ancestor. They kept the truth about the outside world hidden from their people. They maintained the false history that Titans had destroyed all of humanity except for those inside the walls. They accepted that Paradise Island was living on borrowed time, waiting for the day when the world would come to destroy them. The vow prevented any significant technological advancement or military preparation. While Marley and other nations continued developing their capabilities, the people of Paradis remained technologically stagnant. Paradis retained early industrial tech like rifles, cannons, and ODM gear, but fell far behind Marley's modern weapons. Karl Fritz's decision to erase their memories and bind his descendants with a pacifist vow left them vulnerable. By the time of 854, Marley fielded modern anti-Titan artillery. In 845, when Marley attacked by sending the Colossal Titan and Armored Titan to breach Wall Maria, their strike force relied on warrior Titans themselves. The people inside the walls had no way to defend themselves effectively against such an assault. Tens of thousands died in the initial breach of Wall Maria. The vow also created a system of government built on lies. The fake king who sat on the throne had no real power. The people believed they lived in a monarchy that cared about protecting them, but the true rulers were the Rice family hiding in the shadows. And those true rulers were bound by the vow to never use their ultimate weapon, even when their people were being slaughtered. This created a situation where the military commanders and Survey Corps members risked their lives fighting Titans while their king did nothing to help. Soldiers like Erwin Smith spent years trying to reach the truth, knowing something was deeply wrong with their society but unable to prove it. When the truth finally came out, it destroyed the old government. The Survey Corps launched a coup against the false king and exposed the Rice family's secret. They revealed to the public that humanity existed beyond the walls, that the Eldians of Paradis were just one small group of people in a much larger world. They told everyone about the Titans, about Karl Fritz's vow, about how their memories had been stolen. The revelations shattered the peaceful ignorance Karl Fritz had created. People had to face the reality that their entire lives were based on a lie, that their king had abandoned them, and that the outside world hated them for crimes their ancestors committed. For Eren Yeager, the vow represented everything he despised. He refused to accept that Eldians should just wait to be destroyed. He rejected the idea that people should pay for the sins of their ancestors. When he finally made contact with his half-brother Zeke, who had royal blood, Eren accessed the full power of the founding Titan. But instead of using it to defend Paradis peacefully, Eren chose violence. He went to the paths where Ymir Fritz existed and freed her from her mental enslavement to the royal family. By convincing Ymir to follow his will instead of the Fritz family's commands, Eren broke the vow completely. He gained control of the countless colossal-class Titans in the walls and initiated the rumbling, sending them to flatten the entire world beyond Paradis. The vow renouncing war was meant to ensure peace through acceptance of punishment. It was Karl Fritz's attempt to atone for the crimes of the Eldian Empire by sacrificing his descendants, but in the end, the vow only delayed the conflict. It did not solve anything. It left Paradis vulnerable and ignorant, while Marley grew stronger and more aggressive. It forced royal family members to live with guilt and depression, their personalities twisted by the will of an ancestor who died 100 years ago. And when someone finally broke free from the vow's control, the result was not peace but the opposite. The rumbling killed billions of people across the world, proving that Karl Fritz's plan for redemption through passive acceptance was a complete failure. Historia Rice became Queen of Paradise Island after the fall of the old government. She was the last known person with royal blood on the island, which made her incredibly important for military strategy. The government wanted to use her as a tool, turning her into a Titan so she could be passed down through generations as a way to activate the founding Titan's power. Historia's pregnancy is presented as political and protective. The state sought to instrumentalize her bloodline, using her royal blood as a switch for activating the founding Titan's full power when needed. In this way, the effects of the vow continued even after it was broken, shaping the lives of people who had nothing to do with the original decision. The mass memory editing that Karl Fritz performed had consequences that lasted just as long. An entire society grew up believing lies about their own history. They had no context for understanding the world when the truth finally emerged. They did not know why other nations hated them. They did not understand the political situation or the military technology that threatened them. This ignorance made it easy for leaders like Eren to manipulate them with fear and promises of protection. When Eren announced his plan to destroy the world through the rumbling, many Eldians on Paradise celebrated. They saw him as a hero who would save them from enemies they barely understood. The memory wipe created a population that could not think critically about their situation because they lacked the basic facts needed to make informed decisions. The families that were immune to the memory wipe suffered in different ways. The Ackerman clan and the Asian clan were nearly wiped out because they could not be memory rewritten or controlled by the founding Titan. They paid with their lives for being immune to the king's power. Generations later, only a handful of people from these bloodlines remained. Levi and Mikasa Ackerman became incredibly powerful soldiers, using their unique abilities to fight Titans, but they grew up knowing nothing about their family history. Their ancestors had been forced to stay silent to protect their descendants from persecution. This created a strange situation where the Ackermans possessed special powers and immunity to Titan control, but had no idea why or how they were different from other people. Karl Fritz believed he was creating paradise. He thought that by erasing memories and forcing peace through the vow, he was giving his people a chance to live happily before the world came to destroy them. He wanted them to be ignorant and blissful rather than terrified and hopeless. But this paradise was built on oppression. It required hunting down anyone who remembered the truth. It required creating a government based on lies. It required forcing future generations to accept his guilt and his belief that Eldians deserved punishment. Karl Fritz took away his people's ability to choose their own fate. He decided for them that they should die quietly when the time came, never fighting back, never trying to survive or change their situation. The vow renouncing war and the mass memory editing were two sides of the same terrible plan. Together, they created a society that could not defend itself and could not even understand why it was under threat. They trapped royal family members in a cycle of inherited guilt that destroyed their free will. They forced ordinary Eldians to live in ignorance while soldiers died fighting Titans that the king could have stopped with a single command. And when the system finally broke down, when Eren Yeager freed Ymir Fritz and used the founding Titan without the vow's restrictions, the result was not the peaceful paradise Karl Fritz had imagined. Instead, it was genocide on a scale the world had never seen. The rumbling killed billions of innocent people who had nothing to do with the ancient crimes of the Eldian Empire. Karl Fritz's attempt to make his people accept punishment for their ancestors' sins ended up creating the conditions for an even greater crime, one that dwarfed anything the old Eldian Empire had ever done. His vow and his memory wipe failed completely, proving that trying to control the future through guilt and ignorance only creates new cycles of violence and suffering. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the 9 Titans and the 13-year curse. 2,000 years ago, a young slave girl named Ymir Fritz gained the power to transform into a giant monster. She became the first Titan, a being of incredible strength that could crush armies and build empires. For 13 years, she used this power to serve the Eldian king, destroying his enemies and building his civilization. Then she died, but her power did not die with her. King Fritz, desperate to keep the Titan power in his family, forced Ymir's 3 daughters to do something horrible. He made them eat their mother's dead body. The 3 girls, Maria, Rose, and Sina, consumed their mother's remains, and the Titan power split between them. This was how 1 became 3. Years later, as the daughters died and their children ate them, the power split again and again until it became 9 distinct Titans. Each one had its own special abilities and its own name. The Founding Titan could control other Titans and change people's memories. The Attack Titan could see memories from future holders. The Colossus Titan stood 60 meters tall and could release burning steam. The Armored Titan had hardened skin like armor plating. The Female Titan could copy abilities from other Titans. The Beast Titan took the form of different animals depending on who held it. The Jaw Titan had incredibly strong teeth and claws that could bite through almost anything. The Cart Titan walked on 4 legs and had amazing stamina. The Warhammer Titan could create weapons from hardened flesh. These 9 Titans shaped the world for the next 2,000 years, passed down through generations of Eldians who ate the previous holders to gain their power. But with this incredible power came a terrible curse. Every person who inherited one of the 9 Titans would die exactly 13 years after gaining their power. This rule had no exceptions. Strong fighters died. Weak holders died. People who used their Titan constantly died. People who rarely transformed died. Young children who became Titans died before reaching adulthood. Old warriors who fought in countless battles died. Everyone who gained the power of the Titans faced the same fate. 13 years. That was all they got. The curse existed because Ymir Fritz herself had lived for only 13 years after becoming the first Titan. She died while protecting the king from an assassin's spear, choosing not to heal herself from a wound that her Titan body could have easily survived. Some say she wanted to escape her slavery. Others say she simply gave up after years of suffering. Whatever the reason, her death set a limit that no other Titan shifter could surpass. The curse was not just a story or a legend, it was real. Titan shifters could feel it in their bodies as the years passed. Near the end of their 13-year term, their bodies would start to fail. They would age rapidly, their skin becoming wrinkled and their strength fading. Uri Rice, who held the Founding Titan, transformed from a young, healthy man into a frail old person in just a few years. His body simply could not handle the strain of the Titan power any longer. Other shifters experienced similar decline. Their eyes would grow dull, their movements would slow down. The power that had once made them feel invincible would begin to consume them from the inside. Some shifters chose to pass on their power before natural death claimed them. Tom Caver, who held the Beast Titan, killed himself to allow his successor Zeke to inherit the power at a planned time. Others waited until their bodies gave out completely, dying from the strain that 13 years of Titan power placed on human flesh. The mechanics of the curse were absolute. It did not matter if a shifter held multiple Titan powers. Eren Yeager possessed 3 Titans at once, the Attack Titan, the Founding Titan, and the Warhammer Titan. But having 3 powers did not give him 3 times 13 years. He still only had 13 years total, counting from when he first became a Titan shifter by eating his father Grisha. The curse counted from the first inheritance, not from each additional power gained. This meant that collecting multiple Titans did not extend lifespan. It only concentrated more abilities into the same limited time period. Shifters who gained power as children had an especially tragic fate. They would die before ever experiencing adult life. They would never grow old, never see their own children reach adulthood, never live long enough to see the world change beyond their brief existence. The curse existed because of the paths, a mysterious dimension that connected all Eldians across time and space. In this realm, Ymir Fritz existed as a kind of ghost or spirit, trapped for 2,000 years after her death. She spent eternity building Titan bodies out of sand for every Eldian who gained the power to transform. When someone became a Titan shifter, Ymir would construct their Titan body in the paths, shaping it grain by grain according to some invisible blueprint. This process happened instantly from the perspective of the real world, but in the paths, time worked differently. Ymir labored endlessly, creating Titans for the descendants of the people who had enslaved and used her. She followed orders, even in death, unable to break free from her conditioning as a slave. The 13-year limit reflected her own lifespan. It was as if her curse of servitude had infected every person who inherited her power, forcing them to relive her shortened existence over and over again. For the nations that used Titan shifters as weapons, the 13-year limit created serious problems. Marley, a country that controlled 7 of the 9 Titans, had to constantly find new warriors to inherit the powers. They created the Warrior Program, where Eldian children would train from a young age to prove themselves worthy of becoming Titans. The children competed against each other, knowing that being chosen meant gaining incredible power, but also accepting a death sentence. When a warrior's term neared its end, Marley would select a successor. The old warrior would be fed to the new one in Titan form, passing on the power through the act of being eaten. This ensured that the power stayed under Marley's control and didn't vanish if the current holder died unexpectedly. The system was brutal, but effective. It kept the Titan powers cycling through loyal soldiers who had been indoctrinated to serve Marley without question. But what would happen if a Titan shifter died without being eaten? This was one of the most important questions about how Titan powers worked. The answer involved the paths once again. If a shifter died before passing their power to a successor, the Titan ability would automatically transfer through the paths to a newborn Eldian baby somewhere in the world. It did not matter where the baby was born. Distance meant nothing. The baby could be on a different continent, thousands of miles away from where the previous holder died. The baby could be born to parents who had no connection to the Titans or to the previous holder's family. The transfer was completely random. The paths would simply choose the first Eldian infant born after the shifter's death and place that Titan power inside them. The baby would grow up not knowing they possessed this power until something triggered their transformation years later. They might never even realize they were a shifter until they accidentally bit their hand during a moment of extreme stress and suddenly found themselves turning into a giant monster. This random inheritance created enormous risk for nations trying to control the Titan powers. If Reiner Braun, the armored Titan holder, had died during the attack on Wall Maria without being eaten, his power would have gone to some random Eldian baby. Marley would have lost control of the armored Titan completely. They would have no way of knowing which baby inherited it or where that baby was born. The power could have gone to an infant on Paradise Island, making it impossible for Marley to recover. This is why Marley was so careful with their warrior program. They made sure that warriors did not die in battle if possible. They extracted them when fights turned dangerous. They scheduled the transfer of power before the warrior's term expired naturally. Every death without a controlled succession was a potential disaster that could cost them one of their most valuable military assets. The random inheritance also meant that children could be born with a burden they never asked for. A baby born at the wrong moment could receive a Titan power and be doomed to die at age 13 through no fault of their own. The child would have no say in the matter. Their life would be decided by random chance, by the accident of being born at the exact second when a Titan shifter somewhere in the world breathed their last breath. This created innocent victims, people marked for short lives simply because of timing. Some cultures might view such a child as cursed or blessed depending on their beliefs. Some families might try to hide the child's power if they discovered it. Others might try to use their child as a weapon or sell them to the highest bidder. The random inheritance turned the birth of every Eldian baby into a potential lottery with incredibly high stakes. When a shifter possessed multiple Titan powers and died without being eaten, those powers would split apart. Eren held 3 Titans, the Attack, the Founding, and the Warhammer. If he had died suddenly without transferring his powers, 3 different newborn babies would each have inherited one of those Titans. The powers would separate back into their original distinct forms rather than staying combined in a single person. This meant that collecting multiple Titans was a risky strategy. One unexpected death could scatter those carefully gathered powers across the world, potentially making them impossible to recover. It also suggested that the Titan powers themselves wanted to remain separate. They existed as 9 distinct entities, and even when forcibly combined in one person, they retained their individuality and would split apart, given the chance. The 9 Titans each had unique characteristics that made them valuable for different purposes. The Founding Titan was the most powerful, possessing the coordinate that allowed it to command all other Titans and manipulate the memories and bodies of subjects of Ymir. However, this power could only be fully used by someone with royal blood. Without royal blood, the Founding Titan was essentially useless except as a vessel for storing the power. Karl Fritz used the Founding Titan to create countless Colossal-class Titans and harden them into the walls of Paradise Island. He also used it to erase the memories of everyone inside those walls, making them forget about the outside world. The Attack Titan had a special ability that made it unique among the 9. It could receive memories from future inheritors, allowing it to see events that had not yet happened. Eren Kruger, Grisha Jaeger, and Eren Jaeger all possessed this Titan at different times, and they could glimpse fragments of each other's experiences across time. This ability meant that the Attack Titan was constantly moving forward, guided by knowledge of what was to come. It fought for freedom, unable to be controlled or predicted because it operated with information from the future. Eren used this ability to manipulate events across multiple timelines, influencing his father's actions in the past to ensure that he himself would eventually receive the founding Titan. The Colossus Titan was enormous, standing 60 meters tall, 4 times the height of most other Titans. Berthold Hoover showed its devastating power when he kicked through Wall Maria, allowing hundreds of pure Titans to flood into the Shiganshina district. When the Colossus Titan transformed, it released a massive blast like a nuclear explosion, destroying everything nearby. It could also emit huge amounts of steam that could burn anyone who got too close. This steam worked as both offense and defense, creating a shield that prevented enemies from reaching the weak point at the nape of its neck. However, the Colossus Titan moved very slowly because of its massive size. After Bertholdt's death, Armin Arlert inherited the Colossus Titan and used it to destroy the port at Liberio, decimating Marley's fleet in a single transformation. The armored Titan had hardened plates covering most of its body, creating armor that could withstand cannon fire and swords. Reiner Braun used this Titan to smash through the gates of Wall Maria alongside Bertholdt. The armor made the Titan incredibly difficult to kill, but it also slowed it down. In combat, Reiner could shed some of the armor plates to increase his speed, trading defense for mobility. The armored Titan could also create hardened claws on its hands and feet for climbing walls or delivering more powerful attacks. Near the end of the series, the armor showed cracks and weakness as Reiner's body and mind deteriorated from years of constant stress and combat. The female Titan, held by Annie Leonhardt, had a special ability to attract pure Titans by screaming. This allowed Annie to create an army of mindless Titans that would follow her and attack her enemies. She used this tactic when the Survey Corps captured her, calling dozens of Titans to eat her own Titan body so she could escape while they were distracted. The female Titan could also harden parts of its body selectively, creating an extremely tough crystal that could protect Annie from any attack. She used this crystal to encase herself when she was cornered, remaining in suspended animation for years inside an unbreakable shell. The Beast Titan could take the form of different animals depending on who inherited it. Zeke Yeager's version looked like a giant ape covered in fur and stood 17 meters tall. His Beast Titan had incredible throwing accuracy and power. Zeke would pick up rocks and throw them like a baseball pitcher, sending boulders flying at supersonic speeds with pinpoint precision. He used this ability to massacre entire battalions of soldiers, killing hundreds with his ranged attacks before they could even reach him. Zeke also had a special ability connected to his royal blood. He could transform any Eldian who drank his spinal fluid into a pure Titan by screaming. This gave him the power to create Titan armies on command, turning his enemies into mindless monsters that he could control. The Jaw Titan was the smallest of the 9, standing only 5 meters tall, but it was extremely fast and agile. Its defining feature was its incredibly powerful jaws and claws. The Jaw Titan could bite through anything, including the hardened crystal that other Titans created for protection. Porco Galliard's Jaw Titan had a face covered in armor-like hardening that protected its head. When Falco Grice inherited the Jaw Titan, his version developed the ability to fly because he had consumed some of Zeke's spinal fluid before transforming. This gave Falco's Jaw Titan wings, creating a hybrid form that combined the Jaw Titan's features with characteristics from the Beast Titan. The Cart Titan walked on all 4 legs like an animal and was only 4 meters tall. Pieck Finger held this Titan and showed its greatest strength, incredible endurance. Unlike other shifters who could only maintain their Titan form for a few hours, Pieck could stay transformed for months at a time. She could also transform multiple times in rapid succession, hundreds of times in a single day if necessary. The Cart Titan moved quickly despite walking on 4 legs and could carry heavy equipment on its back, making it perfect for transport and logistics. Pieck used this Titan to move artillery and supplies across battlefields, providing fire support while remaining mobile. The Cart Titan could also speak while transformed, making communication with allies much easier during combat. The Warhammer Titan had perhaps the most versatile ability of all the 9. It could create any structure or weapon from hardened Titan flesh. Lara Tiber demonstrated this by forming a massive warhammer, spikes, and crossbow bolts during her fight with Eren. The hardened material was incredibly strong, but not quite as tough as the crystal hardening that Annie used. The Warhammer Titan's most unique feature was that the human operator did not need to be inside the Titan's body. Instead, the shifter could remain hidden inside a crystal cocoon, connected to the Titan by a long cable of flesh. This meant that attackers could not kill the shifter by destroying the Titan's nape, the usual weak point. They had to find and destroy the crystal cocoon, which could be hidden underground or in another protected location. The Warhammer Titan could rebuild its body over and over as long as the cocoon remained intact. These 9 powers shaped the history of the world for 2,000 years. Nations rose and fell based on which Titans they controlled. The Eldian Empire used the 9 Titans to conquer most of the known world, crushing any resistance with overwhelming force. After the Great Titan War, Marley gained control of 7 Titans, while the founding Titan went to Paradise Island with Karl Fritz. The remaining attack Titan passed through various holders, including Eren Kruger and Grisha Jaeger, before finally reaching Eren Jaeger himself. For most of this history, no one truly understood how the Titan powers worked. They did not know about Ymir Fritz trapped in the paths. They did not know that the 13-year curse existed because Ymir herself had lived for only 13 years. They did not know that the random inheritance through newborn babies was Ymir's way of distributing the power when shifters died unexpectedly. They simply knew the rules and followed them, passing on powers through cannibalism and accepting that every shifter would die young. The curse remained unbreakable for 2,000 years. No one found a way to extend a shifter's life beyond 13 years. No shifter escaped the rapid aging that occurred near the end of their term. No medicine or treatment could cure the deterioration that the Titan power caused in human bodies. Grisha Jaeger, a doctor, could not heal himself. Uri Rice, with access to the founding Titan's incredible abilities, could not prevent his own decline. Zeke Jaeger, who possessed royal blood and studied the Titans extensively, could not escape the curse. The 13-year limit was as absolute as gravity or death itself. It was simply a fact of existence for anyone who inherited one of the 9 Titans. The curse finally ended only when Ymir Fritz herself chose to end it. In the final battle between Eren Jaeger and the Alliance, trying to stop him, Mikasa Ackerman killed Eren despite loving him. This act of choosing duty over love, of killing someone precious to save others, showed Ymir something she had never seen before. For 2,000 years, Ymir had loved King Fritz even though he had enslaved and abused her. She had served him even in death, building Titans for his descendants forever. But seeing Mikasa choose to kill Eren, seeing that it was possible to love someone and still oppose them when they were wrong, Ymir finally understood that love did not mean eternal servitude. She let go. She released herself from the paths and took the power of the Titans with her. When Ymir vanished, the curse vanished with her. Titan shifters, who should have died within years, suddenly found themselves free. Pure Titans transformed back into humans. The 9 Titans ceased to exist. After 2,000 years of dominating history, the era of Titans ended because one slave girl finally found peace. The 9 Titans and the 13-year curse were never really about the powers themselves. They were about trauma and slavery, about how pain can be passed down through generations, about how one person's suffering can create a curse that lasts for millennia. Ymir Fritz was a slave who never escaped her chains, not even in death. The curse was her pain made into a rule that no one else could escape either. Every Titan shifter who lived and died within 13 years was experiencing a fraction of Ymir's tragedy. They were all enslaved to a power that would eventually kill them, just as Ymir had been enslaved to a king who destroyed her. The curse only broke when someone showed Ymir that there was another way, that love and freedom could coexist, that choosing to end suffering was more important than blind obedience. The 9 Titans were powerful, but they were also prisons. The 13-year curse was absolute, but it was also breakable. Everything depended on the one person who had started it all, the first Titan, the slave girl who had carried the burden of the entire world on her shoulders for 2,000 years. When she finally put down that burden, the Titans disappeared with her, leaving humanity to build a future without giants. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Ackerman physiology and immunity. The Ackerman family had power in their blood that no other humans possessed. They could fight like Titans without ever becoming one. They were stronger and faster than any normal person could ever be. But that same power made them dangerous to a king who wanted total control. When Karl Fritz tried to erase everyone's memories to create his perfect, peaceful world, the Ackermans were the ones who still remembered. They were immune to his power. That immunity made them a threat, and it nearly destroyed them completely. Long before the walls existed, when the Eldian Empire still ruled the world through the power of the Titans, scientists serving the royal family conducted experiments. They were trying to create something new by mixing human biology with Titan science. The goal was simple but ambitious. They wanted warriors who could access the strength of Titans while staying human, warriors who would never lose their minds or their loyalty, warriors who could protect the king from any threat, including other Titans. The experiments worked, but not in the way anyone expected. The result was the Ackerman bloodline. The Ackermans are an Eldian bloodline engineered through Titan science. They are subjects of Ymir who, unlike others, cannot be turned into Titans and are resistant to the founding Titans' memory manipulation. When an Ackerman awakens under extreme stress, they manifest superhuman strength, speed, and battle intuition while remaining fully human. The scientists had been experimenting with subjects of Ymir, trying to see what happened when they combined human genetics with Titan power in new ways. What they created was a family line that could manifest power similar to Titans as humans, without transforming and without inheriting any of the 9 Titans. The Ackermans became something in between. Still, subjects of Ymir, still fundamentally Eldian, but altered in ways that made them unique. The royal family saw their value immediately and assigned them one exclusive responsibility. The Ackermans would protect the king. For centuries, that was their role. They became elite royal protectors, the right hand of the monarchy, entrusted with the survival of the royal bloodline and the Eldian people. The Ackerman family served as the king's bodyguards and enforcers. It was a position of tremendous influence and honor. The Ackermans were elite, they were respected, they were necessary. But they were also different from everyone else, and that difference contained the seeds of their eventual downfall. The thing that made the Ackermans so valuable was also what made them dangerous. The experiments that created them had altered them at a genetic level. They were engineered, subjects of Ymir with unique properties. They could not be turned into pure Titans. If someone injected an Ackerman with Titan spinal fluid and tried to transform them, nothing would happen. They were immune to that process. But more importantly, they were immune to the founding Titan's most powerful ability. The founding Titan could reach into the minds of all subjects of Ymir and change their memories, erase their thoughts, rewrite their understanding of reality. It was the ultimate form of control. A king with the founding Titan could make his entire population forget anything he wanted them to forget. He could make them believe anything he wanted them to believe, but he could not do that to the Ackermans. Their engineered physiology made them resistant. When the founding Titan screamed and wiped memories from millions of minds, the Ackermans still remembered everything. For most of Eldian history, this was not a problem. The Ackermans served loyally, they protected the royal family, they kept their knowledge to themselves. But everything changed when the 145th king took the throne. Karl Fritz was ashamed of what the Eldian Empire had become. He looked at centuries of conquest and domination through Titan power and decided it had to end. He did not want to maintain the empire. He wanted to destroy it from within. He conspired with the Tiber family and orchestrated the Great Titan War, a devastating conflict that would tear the empire apart. When the war ended, Karl Fritz gathered as many Eldians as he could and brought them to Paradise Island. He used the founding Titan to transform countless colossal-class Titans and commanded them to harden their bodies into 3 massive concentric walls. Inside those walls, he intended to create a new society, a peaceful society, a society where no one would remember the horrors of the past. Using the power of the founding Titan, Karl Fritz screamed and erased the memories of everyone on Paradise Island. The subjects of Ymir forgot about the world outside the walls. They forgot about the Great Titan War. They forgot about the Eldian Empire's centuries of conquest. They forgot about Marley and the other nations. They forgot about Titan science and how Titans were made. They woke up believing that humanity had always lived inside the walls, that Titans had always existed as mindless monsters, that the world beyond the walls was empty and hostile. Karl Fritz had created his perfect peaceful society by taking away the truth. But not everyone forgot. The Ackermans who were alive during the memory wipe remembered everything. They knew the world outside the walls was full of other nations and other people. They knew the truth about Titans and how they were created. They knew that Karl Fritz had deliberately erased everyone's memories to maintain his version of peace. The Ackermans were not the only ones immune to the memory wipe. The Asian clan, including the Azumabito family, also retained their memories because they were not subjects of Ymir at all. Their immunity came from being outside the scope of the founding Titan's power entirely. Karl Fritz tried to manage the situation peacefully. He offered the immune families positions of nobility inside Walsina. Most of them accepted. They took the deal. They kept quiet about the truth. They became part of the new system, but the Ackermans and the Asian clan refused. They rejected Karl Fritz's ideology. They turned their backs on the monarchy. They could not accept a peace built on lies and erased memories. They spoke out, they protested, they spread information about the world outside the walls, and Karl Fritz decided they had to be eliminated. Because the founding Titan could not alter Ackerman memories, the 145th king persecuted the clan inside the walls to safeguard his peace plan. Their status was revoked, and they were hunted, driving the family near extinction until Yuri Reis halted the repression after his encounter with Kenny. It was not a quick execution. It was a slow, methodical campaign to destroy the family completely. The king's forces hunted them down, generation after generation. The Ackermans were stripped of their status and their wealth. Their businesses were interfered with, their homes were taken. Some fled to the underground city beneath the capital, living in squalor and poverty. Others escaped to remote areas near the edges of Wall Maria, hiding in the mountains and forests. The remaining Ackermans made a choice. They stopped telling their children the truth. They did not pass down the knowledge of the world outside the walls. They did not explain why the family was being persecuted. They hoped that if the younger generations grew up ignorant, the royal family would leave them alone. It did not work. Even generations later, the Ackermans were still being hunted. The persecution only stopped when Kenny Ackerman, a notorious serial killer known as Kenny the Ripper, tried to assassinate King Uri Reis. Yuri was the current holder of the founding Titan and the true ruler inside the walls. When Kenny attacked him, Yuri could have killed him instantly. Instead, he apologized. He got down on his knees and apologized for what his family had done to the Ackermans. He offered Kenny a position as his right-hand man. Kenny accepted, and the persecution finally ended. But by that point, the damage was done. The Ackerman family had been reduced to just a handful of survivors. What made the Ackermans so dangerous to Karl Fritz was the same thing that made them such valuable protectors in the first place. They had superhuman abilities that activated under stress. Every Ackerman was born with latent power in their blood, but that power had to be awakened. The awakening happened in moments of extreme danger, when survival instinct kicked in and the Ackerman's body unlocked its full potential. When an Ackerman awakened, they gained access to something extraordinary. Through some mechanism connected to their altered physiology, the awakened Ackerman experienced an instinctive surge of battle intuition and technique. It was not just instinct. It was a sudden manifestation of combat ability that seemed to come from nowhere, transferred instantly into their mind and body. Levi Ackerman described the experience as suddenly knowing exactly what needed to be done. An awakened Ackerman could move faster than any normal human. They were stronger than any soldier. They had reflexes that seemed impossible. They could fight in ways that looked supernatural. Levi became known as humanity's strongest soldier. Mikasa was called worth 100 soldiers. Kenny the Ripper killed dozens of military police officers and became a legend in the underground. All of them had experienced the awakening. Mikasa Ackerman was just a normal 9-year-old girl until the day 3 human traffickers broke into her home. They killed her father immediately. They killed her mother while Mikasa watched. They kidnapped Mikasa to sell her and her mother to buyers in the underground city because her mother was from the rare Asian clan. Eren Yeager tracked the traffickers and tried to save her. He killed 2 of them, but the third one nearly strangled him to death. Mikasa watched frozen in fear as Eren told her to fight. In that moment, something changed. She picked up a knife and felt a surge of power unlike anything she had experienced before. Her body moved on its own. She crushed the knife's handle with her bare hands. She snapped the floorboards with the strength of her foot. She stabbed the trafficker through the heart from behind with perfect precision. Her Ackerman power had awakened. From that day forward, Mikasa was no longer a normal child. She had access to strength and speed that made her one of the most capable fighters in the entire world. Levi's awakening happened when he was young and living in the underground city. The details of the exact moment are not fully known, but what is certain is that after his mother Kuchel died, Levi found himself in dangerous situations that forced his power to manifest. His uncle Kenny found him and taught him how to survive, how to use a knife, how to navigate the brutal world of the underground. Kenny himself had experienced a similar awakening at some point in his life, though the details were never fully explained. All 3 of them confirmed to each other that they had felt the same thing. A sudden moment when their power activated and everything became clear. The awakening was not automatic. An Ackerman could live their entire life without ever accessing their power. Mikasa's father never awakened. Levi's mother, Kuchel, never awakened. They lived as normal people and died as normal people. The power only came through trauma and survival instinct. It required a moment when death was imminent and the body had no choice but to unlock everything it had. Some people believe there was another requirement. Eren Yeager once claimed to Mikasa that an Ackerman needed a host to awaken, someone they were instinctively driven to protect, and that the power activated when the host gave them an order in a life or death situation. He said that when Eren told Mikasa to fight, it triggered her Ackerman instinct to protect him, making her his slave. He claimed her headaches were caused by her true self resisting the Ackerman programming. He said she was not free, but Eren was lying. He was trying to push Mikasa away to protect her from what was coming. Awakening does not require a host or servitude. Eren's claim that Mikasa was biologically bound to him was a deliberate lie. The canon position, reinforced by Zeke, is that Ackermans retain free will. Their devotion comes from choice, not programming. Zeke Yeager confirmed that Ackermans were not slaves to anyone. Their loyalty and their choices were their own. Mikasa cared about Eren because she cared about him, not because her genetics forced her to. Levi followed Erwin Smith because he respected him, not because he was programmed to obey. Kenny served Uri Reese because Uri had shown him kindness, not because of some biological compulsion. The Ackermans made their own decisions. The awakening required stress and danger, but it did not require a master. What the awakening did provide was immediate access to incredible combat ability. An awakened Ackerman did not need years of training to become a master fighter. The instinctive knowledge was already there, manifesting through their altered physiology. It was the reason Mikasa could graduate at the top of her class in the 104th Training Corps, despite only training for a few years. It was the reason Levi could take on the Beast Titan alone and nearly kill Zeke. It was the reason Kenny could face the Survey Corps and almost win. They were not just talented, they had genetic advantages that made them superhuman. They could process information faster, they could react quicker, they could hit harder, they could endure more damage. They were built to be warriors, and the awakening turned that potential into reality. But there was a price to being an Ackerman. The same alterations that gave them power also made them outcasts. They could not be controlled, and people feared what they could not control. After Karl Fritz's persecution, the Ackerman name became associated with danger and rebellion. The family was forced to hide, to scatter, to live in poverty and isolation. By the time the main story began, there were only 2 confirmed Ackermans left, Levi and Mikasa. Kenny died during the conflict over the Founding Titan's power. The entire bloodline had been reduced to 2 people. The family that once served as elite protectors of the Eldian monarchy had been driven to the edge of extinction by the very people they were created to serve. The Ackermans remembered truths that everyone else had forgotten. That was their greatest strength and their greatest curse. Mikasa knew from family stories that her father's family had been persecuted, but she did not know why until much later. Levi grew up knowing nothing about his heritage until he learned the truth during the conflict with the royal government. The Ackermans, who were born after the memory wipe, did not automatically know the old world. They only knew what their elders chose to tell them, and many elders chose silence to protect their children. The Ackermans had survived by forgetting their own history, by hiding what they were, by blending in as much as possible, but the power in their blood never went away. It was always there, waiting to be awakened, waiting for the moment when stress and danger would unlock the combat intuition that lay dormant in their genes. When that moment came, the Ackerman became something more than human, not a Titan, but not ordinary either, something in between. A weapon created by science, sharpened by trauma, and wielded by their own free will. Kenny Ackerman once said that everyone was a slave to something. Levi was a slave to his sense of duty. Erwin was a slave to his dream. Eren was a slave to freedom itself. But the Ackermans were not slaves to their blood. They were shaped by it, empowered by it, but not controlled by it. When Karl Fritz tried to take away everyone's freedom through memory manipulation, the Ackermans kept theirs. When the royal government tried to wipe them out for refusing to submit, they survived. When the world demanded they bow to the Founding Titan's will, they said no. Their immunity to mind control was not just a biological quirk, it was a statement. It meant that even in a world where Titans could erase and rewrite human thought, Where kings could make entire populations forget their own history, there were still people who remembered. There were still people who could not be controlled. The Ackermans paid a terrible price for that freedom. They lost their status, their wealth, their family, and nearly their entire bloodline. But the ones who lived through the memory wipe never lost the truth. They never forgot who they were or where they came from, even when forgetting would have been safer. In the end, the Ackerman family represented something important in the story. They proved that power was not the same as control. Karl Fritz had the founding Titan, the most powerful weapon in the world, and he used it to control millions of people, but he could not control the Ackermans. They were immune to his greatest power. That immunity made them dangerous, but it also made them essential. When the truth needed to be remembered, the Ackermans remembered it. When someone needed to fight without fear of being turned into a mindless Titan, the Ackermans fought. When the world needed warriors who could not be broken or brainwashed, the Ackermans stood ready. They were created to serve a king, but they ended up serving something bigger. They served the truth, they served freedom, they served humanity's right to remember its own history. The experiments that created them were meant to produce obedient protectors. Instead, they produced the only people who could not be forced to obey. That was the real power of the Ackerman bloodline, and that was why Karl Fritz feared them so much. They were the one thing he could not erase. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to spinal fluid, screams, and instant transformation. Every Titan that ever existed came from a human. The transformation required one critical ingredient, Titan spinal fluid. This substance held the power to turn any subject of Ymir into a mindless monster. The fluid came from Titans themselves, extracted from their spinal columns and processed into a serum. When injected into an Eldian, the transformation happened immediately, or within moments. A burst of lightning, a release of steam, a human body growing into a giant form that existed only to hunt and devour other humans. Marley used this process as a punishment. Eldians who broke the law were taken to the edge of Paradise Island. A soldier would inject them with Titan spinal fluid. The transformation would begin right away. The human would become a pure Titan and get kicked off the wall, sent to wander the island forever as a mindless creature. This was the fate of the Eldian restorationists. This was what happened to Dina Fritz. This was what happened to Ymir after she was arrested by Marley for being part of a cult that worshipped her. The injection caused transformation within moments every time. The serum was kept in sealed vials and required careful storage. Exposure to air, spillage, or contamination reduced its effectiveness. The exact chemical composition remained unknown, but scientists in Marley considered it to be Titan spinal fluid mixed with other materials. Different types of serum existed. The vial that Eren later drank was labeled Armor and gave him the ability to harden his Titan form. Rod Reese also had access to the generic Titan serum used in the ritual to pass down the founding Titan. When Rod licked a large amount of this serum off the ground during the chapel incident, he transformed into an abnormally large Titan. The massive size came from consuming so much fluid at once, not from a special type of serum. The transformation process worked in a similar way each time someone used regular Titan serum. Inject the fluid into a subject of Ymir. The person transforms into a pure Titan immediately or within moments. The human body became trapped inside the nape of the Titan's neck, merged with the Titan flesh, unable to think or remember who they were. They became mindless monsters driven by an instinct to eat humans. This happened to everyone who received the injection. Though the specific Titan form varied, some became regular pure Titans. Others became abnormals with unusual features or behaviors. But Zeke Yeager discovered something different. His spinal fluid worked differently than regular Titan serum. Zeke was the Beast Titan, but he was also something more important. He carried royal blood through his mother, Dina Fritz. That royal blood gave him abilities that no other Beast Titan ever had. When someone ingested Zeke's spinal fluid, they did not transform right away. The fluid stayed dormant inside their body. They went about their normal lives, completely unaware of what was inside them. The transformation only happened when Zeke screamed. This ability came from his connection to the royal bloodline. The founding Titan had the power to create and control Titans through a scream. Royal blood gave access to abilities similar to the founding Titan, even without holding that specific Titan power. Zeke could not do everything the founding Titan could do. His control over the Titans he created was not perfect. One of his Titans ignored an order and tried to eat Mike Zacharias despite being told to stop. Zeke had to kill that Titan to make it obey. But the basic ability remained. Zeke could turn people into Titans by screaming, as long as they had already consumed his spinal fluid. The key difference was timing. Regular Titan serum caused near immediate transformation. Zeke's spinal fluid required a two-step process. First, the person had to ingest or inhale his spinal fluid. Second, Zeke had to scream while they were within range of his voice. Only then would the transformation begin. This gave Zeke tremendous tactical advantages. He could prepare large groups of people for transformation and trigger them all at once whenever he wanted. Zeke first demonstrated this ability at Ragako Village. 5 years after the fall of Wall Maria, Zeke infiltrated Wall Rose with Pieck and a small group of Marleyan soldiers. They targeted Ragako, a small village inside the walls. Zeke decided to use the villagers as test subjects. The Marleyan soldiers created a method to deliver Zeke's spinal fluid as a gas that could be released over the village. The soldiers released the gas over Ragako. The wind carried it through the streets and into the homes. The villagers inhaled the gas without knowing what it was. When subjects of Ymir inhaled Zeke's spinal fluid gas, something strange happened according to Zeke's later claims. He said they froze in place and their bodies became paralyzed. He claimed this paralysis happened instantly. This turned out to be a lie. He told this lie to the Paradis military to make them believe they would have warning if he tried to poison them. Once all the villagers had inhaled the gas, Zeke let out a scream. Every single person in Ragako transformed into a Titan at the same moment. The transformations happened inside their homes. Connie Springer's mother transformed while lying in her bed, creating a Titan with useless limbs that could not move from the spot. The entire village population became Titans simultaneously. No blood, no bodies, just an abandoned village and dozens of new pure Titans wandering around. Zeke's royal blood gave him another advantage. The Titans he created obeyed his commands. He could control where they went and what they attacked. When he led these Titans in an assault within Wall Rose, they followed his orders. He used them as an army, positioning them strategically and directing their movements. This level of control came from his connection to the royal bloodline, a limited version of the founding Titans' absolute power over pure Titans. The Ragako incident proved Zeke's method worked. He could transform entire populations into Titans whenever he wanted, as long as they were within range of his scream. The exact range was unspecified, but it appeared to cover at least a village-sized area. All he needed was a way to get his spinal fluid into their bodies and a moment to scream. This discovery led to his most devastating plan, the Wine Plan. After the battle at Shiganshina, Zeke secretly contacted his half-brother Eren and orchestrated a complex scheme. He sent his followers, the anti-Marleyan volunteers, to Paradis Island to make contact with the Eldians living there. Working with his most trusted follower, Yelena, Zeke arranged for Marleyan survey ships to carry large stocks of wine. This wine had been laced with his spinal fluid before shipping. The wine looked normal. It tasted normal. Nothing about it seemed suspicious. The volunteers brought this wine to Paradis as a gesture of goodwill, introducing the isolated islanders to foods and drinks from the outside world. The wine was presented as a luxury item, something special reserved for important people. Yelena made sure her most loyal followers got jobs in catering and restaurants where they could distribute the wine without raising suspicion. The wine went specifically to members of the military, especially high-ranking officers. Commander Dot Pixis drank the wine. Commander Nile Dock drank the wine. Many officers and soldiers throughout the Paradis military drank the wine over the course of months. None of them had any idea what they had consumed. The spinal fluid sat dormant in their bodies, waiting for the trigger. Zeke had told the Paradis military about the Ragako incident. He admitted to using gas with his spinal fluid to transform the villagers, but he added a crucial lie to his explanation. He claimed that when people inhaled his spinal fluid gas, they were immediately frozen in place and paralyzed. He said this happened to all the Ragako villagers before he screamed. This lie was strategic. It made the military leaders believe they would have warning if Zeke ever tried to use his ability against them. They thought anyone who consumed his spinal fluid would be paralyzed instantly, giving them time to respond. This was completely false. The people who drank the wine showed no symptoms. They continued their normal activities. They had no idea anything was wrong. Zeke deliberately misled the military to lower their guard. He wanted them to drink the wine freely, believing they would know if they had been poisoned. The truth was that Zeke's spinal fluid caused no noticeable effects until the moment he screamed. The wine plan gave Zeke control over much of Paradis Island's military leadership. At any moment, he could scream and turn numerous high-ranking officers into Titans. This made them his hostages. As long as Zeke was alive and within range, these people lived under the constant threat of transformation. They could not arrest him. They could not harm him. Any action against Zeke risked him screaming and transforming the entire military command structure into mindless monsters. Niccolo, a Marleyan chef who worked on Paradis Island, accidentally revealed the wine plan. He had not been told about the spinal fluid because Yelena believed he had grown too close to the Paradis residents. When Niccolo discovered that Gabi Braun had killed Sasha Blaus, he grabbed a bottle of wine and tried to attack Gabi with it. Falco Grice moved to protect Gabi and got hit instead. The wine bottle broke. Some of the liquid got into Falco's mouth. Niccolo realized what had happened. He recognized the wine. He knew it contained Zeke's spinal fluid. He immediately understood that Falco would transform into a Titan if Zeke screamed. This revelation exposed the entire plan. The military leaders present learned that they too had been drinking contaminated wine. They understood that Zeke could transform them at any time. The true horror of the wine plan became clear during the battle at Shiganshina. Eren and Zeke were fighting to make contact with each other so they could use the founding Titan's power. As Eren struggled against Reiner's armored Titan, Zeke announced that he would transform the soldiers who had ingested his spinal fluid. Colt Grice arrived at Zeke's location with his younger brother Falco. Colt begged Zeke to wait. He explained that Falco had accidentally consumed the spinal fluid. He pleaded with Zeke to hold off on screaming until Falco could get out of range. Zeke refused. He expressed sympathy for Colt. He said he understood that Colt just wanted to protect his little brother. He acknowledged their history together and the fact that Falco was just a child. Then he screamed anyway. Falco transformed into a pure Titan immediately. Colt, who had been hugging his brother, was caught in the transformation. The burst of steam and energy from Falco's Titan form burned Colt to death instantly. Commander Pixis transformed. Commander Nile Dock transformed. All the wine-marked soldiers present transformed into Titans at Zeke's command. Many people who had served the Paradis military became mindless monsters in an instant. Zeke ordered the newly transformed Falco to attack and kill Reiner. His royal blood gave him control over these Titans, turning them into weapons against his enemies. Later, when Levi was transporting Zeke through a forest, Zeke screamed again. Multiple members of the Survey Corps who were guarding him had been given wine months earlier. They all transformed into pure Titans at once. These were soldiers loyal to Levi, people who had fought against Titans their entire lives. In one moment, they became the very things they had been fighting. Zeke had turned them into weapons without their knowledge or consent. The wine plan worked because of 3 factors. First, Zeke's royal blood gave him the ability to trigger delayed transformations through his scream. Second, the spinal fluid caused no symptoms, allowing people to consume it without knowing. Third, the lie about paralysis made the military lower their guard and drink freely. These 3 elements combined to give Zeke control over hundreds of people simultaneously. The method had limitations. Zeke could only transform people who had actually consumed his spinal fluid. The transformation only worked on subjects of Ymir. Marleyans and other non-Eldians were immune. Non-Eldian volunteers like Yelena and Onyankopon could handle and distribute the wine safely because they were not subjects of Ymir. This allowed them to serve the contaminated wine without risking their own transformation. People also had to be within range of Zeke's scream when he triggered the transformation, though the exact range was unspecified. Zeke could control the Titans he created, but his control was not absolute like the founding Titans would be. The Titans followed his general commands but showed occasional disobedience. When Zeke ordered a Titan to stop eating Mike Zacharias so he could question the soldier, the Titan ignored the order and continued trying to eat. Zeke had to crush the Titan's head to make it stop. This suggested his royal blood gave him strong control but not perfect control. The spinal fluid transformation had to be triggered by Zeke's scream specifically. If Zeke died before screaming, the people who had consumed his spinal fluid would remain human. This made Zeke valuable alive but also made him a target. As long as he was alive and could scream, he held power over everyone who had consumed his spinal fluid. If he died, that power disappeared. This created a complicated situation where both sides needed Zeke for different reasons. The instant transformation from Zeke's scream contrasted with the near-immediate transformation from regular Titan serum. Both methods worked quickly, but they served different purposes. Regular serum was used for immediate transformation, usually as punishment or to create pure titans for specific tasks. Zeke's method allowed for strategic placement and delayed activation. He could spend months preparing people for transformation and then trigger them all at once when the timing was right. Falco's transformation had unexpected consequences. Because he had consumed Zeke's spinal fluid before becoming the Jaw Titan, his Jaw Titan form showed bird-like features. He had talons instead of regular claws, his teeth resembled a beak. His Jaw Titan could even fly, something no previous Jaw Titan had been able to do. This suggested that consuming spinal fluid from a royal-blooded Titan shifter before inheriting one of the 9 Titans could affect the appearance and abilities of that Titan form. The Wine Plan represented Zeke's strategic thinking at its most ruthless. He was willing to sacrifice people he knew personally. He had worked with Colt for years. He knew Falco as a child. He understood exactly what his scream would do to them. He chose to scream anyway because he believed his ultimate goal justified the sacrifice. This decision showed how far Zeke was willing to go to achieve his objectives, even when it meant killing people who had served alongside him. The ability to trigger delayed transformations through a scream was unique to royal blood holders. No other Titan shifter could do this. The founding Titan had similar abilities but required the user to have royal blood themselves or be in contact with someone of royal blood. Zeke's ability worked because he had both royal blood and one of the 9 Titans. This combination gave him powers that fell between regular Titan shifters and the founding Titan. The spinal fluid transformation method changed the entire dynamic of the final conflict. Zeke had effectively taken hundreds of Paradis soldiers hostage without them knowing. He could weaponize the military command structure at any moment. This gave him and Eren leverage over everyone else. It forced the military to consider Zeke's demands because refusing him meant losing their leadership to Titan transformation. The Wine Plan showed how Titan science could be weaponized in new ways. Traditional methods required injecting people one at a time. Zeke's gas weapon and contaminated wine allowed mass transformation. These methods could affect entire populations simultaneously. The combination of royal blood, Titan spinal fluid, and strategic planning created a threat that was nearly impossible to counter once set in motion. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.